All right. We're recording on Blab. Hello, everyone watching the Blab replay. We're eating pizza, drinking beer in South Florida.
Oh, yeah.
And we just had a little rehearsal.
It's a very long rehearsal.
It was only about 10 minutes, I think.
Sound check, call it.
Yeah, it was just a sound check. So, and you'll have to apologize. I apologize to you because Rick and I are sharing a microphone. So, we only have two for the three of us. So, that, we're doing the best we can.
I'm going to get more pizza.
Okay, go get some more pizza while I do the intro.
I don't usually say a lot, so we'll be all right.
That's true. And this is the nice thing about this is when Rick starts going into his, instead of hitting the crickets button, I can just start taking the microphone away, and he'll start talking louder. Maybe he won't notice, and then we'll just move on to the next topic. Okay, so the H5 is recording. Was it a 20-minute sound check? Really? I don't think so. We weren't going that long. All right. Yep. No adult supervision. Okay. So, checklist. Blab is recording. Mm-hmm. My H5 is recording. Mm-hmm. All right. Let's try this again.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Feel the power.
Airline Pilot Guy, episode 203.
Flight 209, you are cleared for takeoff. Roger. LA, good morning. 123.9.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. The view from my side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 201 in the Doubletree Hotel in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. In this episode, Alaska Airlines skipper accused of drunk flying. JFK allows another plane load of passengers to deplane without going through customs/immigration. And a German tourist opens an emergency exit on a Jet Airways flight in India. And, of course, more news and your great feedback. So get all settled in. Tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 203 is ready for pushback. That's what happens when I look away from my script. You'd think that I'd know this after more than 200 episodes, but no, you'd be wrong. Okay, well, hello again, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. I'm Captain Jeff. I'm flying this airplane, the pilot flying, and I have two pilots monitoring, and one of them is Rick from Miami.
Hey, everybody. Miami Rick from Miami. Happy to be along for episode 203. Fun-filled episode. Great news, great feedback, and looking forward to hanging out again with all of you live on the Blab and on the podcast version of the show.
This is kind of like deja vu. And also joining us, the other pilot monitoring is Captain Nick, and he's sitting over here to my right.
And I'm doing a very bad job at monitoring because we just managed to do this entire beginning, and now we're having to repeat it because we didn't monitor Jeff properly.
Yes, the quality control mechanism was not in place, apparently.
Anyway, it's great to be here, Jeff. Thanks very much indeed. What a coincidence that we have all ended up in Miami at the same time. I can't believe it.
Yeah, we did not. Excuse me. The beer is talking. We did not plan this at all. I had planned this trip, and I told the co-hosts that I would be in Palm Beach, and this would be a good day to record. And it's really kind of tough, organizing our schedules together because we all have our own thing. Like Rick, who knows when he's going to be flying because his schedule's changing all the time. And Captain Nick, you're doing a lot of reserve, it seems, lately.
Yeah, this is an entire month of reserve for me. So, for an entire month, I have no idea when or where I'll be in the world. And just by coincidence, having promised faithfully that all was quiet and I wouldn't be called, moments after my reserve started this morning in the UK at 6 a.m., they said, could I come and take the place of a first officer who'd gone sick on the Miami? So, I leapt into the airplane and did the cruise pilot job, something I haven't done for quite a few years. On the way out, I'm thinking, I wonder if this is going to work. I might see Rick. And of course, now I realized that Jeff was here at the same time. We've all managed to get together.
Excellent. I mean, we couldn't have planned it better. There was a little bit of chatter on our chat room there. You know, the four hosts of the show, and at about 1:30 Eastern time or 4:30 Brazil time, kind of like when I woke up, I started seeing that Nick was going to be coming over across the pond and actually being here, and I thought, Jeff is there. Well, I'm flying back home today, and Nick is flying to Miami. Why not get together and do a show? So, from all over the world, we converged down here, and here we are. Happy to be along Captain Jeff for episode 203. We have a great show in store, and just happy to be here.
Yeah, honestly, I thought we were just going to do this like maybe you were going to pick up Nick and the two of you were going to find a place to get on the blab, and then I would be here in Palm Beach on the blab, and then Dr. Steph, unfortunately, she couldn't join us this evening because she is out flying, which, of course, is what this is all about. So, I mean, it's really hard to feel sorry for her, going out and flying. Yeah. So,
absolutely. Yeah, but she's definitely sorely missed. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there is no adult supervision at all. And by the way, the reason why I said this is all kind of deja vu is because we've already said pretty much all of this already, and right about this point, I looked down at my recorder and I noticed that the thing was not recording, and it wasn't recording the blab either. So
I have to say, it was much better the first time.
Yeah, it was. It lost some of its energy. It's like,
I don't know why.
We got to say this again, but pretty much from here on out, this is all new stuff. So
this is all brand new, starting right now. Like from now on, it's all new.
The energy should be back up. It won't be, but it should be. Okay, so last night, by the way, I was in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Steph lives, and she came by the DoubleTree in Charlotte in the South Park area, and joined me and my co-pilot, and we went to a place called Cowfish. And if you follow the APG crew, that's at APG crew Twitter feed, you probably saw the posting of the photo that was taken last night, and that was Dr. Steph and I, and then my co-pilot took the picture because we didn't want him in the picture.
Poor chap.
He's not as good looking as Dr. Steph and myself. Actually, that's not true. He is a good looking guy, but anyway, we needed somebody to take the picture, so he was it. So we had a great time at Cowfish and had some great beer and great food, sushi. We just had a good old time. So I hope that you got a chance to see that tweet from the at APG crew. And unfortunately, because of the way things work, we thought about maybe recording the first part of the show last night in Charlotte. I'm making this a two-parter and then doing most of the feedback here today. But just circumstances worked out such that it just wasn't a good time to record a show last night. So that's all I'll say about that. And that's it. So Rick, you said that you're just back from how long of a trip were you on?
So I left to Amsterdam last week. I forget what day it was. I don't know. Probably.
It was a long time ago, Rick. You were telling me.
Feels like it was a couple of days ago. And so I went to Amsterdam. And then I did my usual turn. I went through Amsterdam, then through Basel in Switzerland, and then through Sao Paulo. And then actually this afternoon, a couple hours ago, I deadheaded from Sao Paulo to Miami. So it's basically sprawled out in business class, just watching movies and drinking nice wine until it was time to land in Miami and then meet up with Captain Nick and head up here. So it's been a good trip all around.
And how about you?
Well, I was in St. Lucia only a couple of days ago, and that was a long trip too. That was a 5-day trip, and I called out for that, and I was expecting a short trip to JFK, which is the usual this time of the year. All the disruption with the snow and, everything's been going on in JFK. I thought, well, they'll be needing the spare crews to try and get everything back on track. And lo and behold, they called me out. I'd packed for a winter in JFK, trying to use a bit of intelligence. And of course, a 5-nighter in St. Lucia, where it was like 29 degrees. I arrived with jeans and fleeces and Oh, 9 yards.
Yeah, we remember you were in St. Lucia because we tried to do last week's recording, 202, and at some point your laptop overheated and you lost your bandwidth, and so you didn't even quite make it to the hour-long point.
No, I just quietly faded away, and I hope I go like that, Alex. It would be very much nicer than disappearing into a hillside with 300 screaming passengers. But no, I had to sit outside on my balcony because that was the only place I could get a signal from the Wi-Fi, and in 39 degrees, my ancient laptop decided that it had enough. And that kicked me off for the night. It was a real shame. I think it was a great show. I've listened to it since, and I would love to have been in there to add the odd passing comment.
It was actually a blessing from God. We hope you get a lot more of those St. Lucia trips.
Okay.
Just kidding. Okay. So anyway, we're all here together, and obviously no blab problems because there's nobody else on the blab with us. So I think it's maybe time to move on a little bit with a couple of administrative details before we do the coffee fund.
Let's do it.
All right. Got a gift in the mail. 2 1-pound bags of coffee from Greg and Amy Spood. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. And it was from the Door County Coffee and Tea Company in Wisconsin. And I have not had a chance yet to open them up and make a cup of coffee yet. But I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your wonderful note and your physical contribution to the coffee fund. I mean, real coffee. So thank you, Greg and Amy. And let's see, I met up earlier today, when I first got here to Palm Beach Gardens with APG community member James Balch. And I don't know, did you guys meet James when they're both taking bites of pizza, thinking that I'm not going to ask him a question?
That's perfect timing. Yeah, of course. I remember James, great guy, great energy. It was really, really great to meet him on the 200th episode. So what'd you guys do here? No, that you.
Well,
Put you on the spot there.
I just took a big bite of pizza, and so he came by the hotel, and we ate at the bar downstairs, and had a great visit. And so always good to see James. Thank you, James, for coming by and spending some of your time and taking time off from work to meet up with me. So that was a lot of fun. And let's see, moving on. App update. Paul Whittle, the app guy in the UK. We already have the Android version of the Airline Pilot Guy app available on Google Play, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So if you're on the Android side of the telephone world, then go ahead and search for that and download it. And we also have an iOS version that was submitted to Apple, but apparently they turned it down because of some kind of a copyright issue, and I'm not sure exactly what that involves, but we're working through that right now.
You mean there's another airline pilot guy out there?
Must be. I don't know.
Oh, I'd love to meet him. He might need nice.
You might actually have a better show, actually. So anyway, we'll let you know when that iOS app is ready for downloading. And again, all this is for free. And it's just a way for you, part of the community, can kind of take us with you on your mobile device, whether it be a smartphone or tablet or whatever. And it has sections for the podcast, the YouTube channel, the Twitter feed, and information about all the APG crew, and ways to contribute to the coffee fund. And all. Did I say coffee fund? Did you hear me say that?
I did.
All right. It's time for the coffee fund, I think. What a great segue.
Love it. Great segue. Good.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love
Oh, we can sing.
I love tea. I love the jabber jabber, it loves me. Coffee and tea and the jabber and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup.
There's Okay, there you go. Another wonderful rendition of the show. And we do apologize to the Ink Spots and any other family members.
And anyone listening.
We apologize to all of you for that. So the coffee fund, what is it? It's your way to contribute to the show financially if you have the financial resources to do so. If you're a student pilot and you need to save your money to buy flying lessons or pay the rent or buy something to eat, please do not contribute to the coffee fund. But if you're one of those rich general aviation pilots out there, you don't know what to do, all the money you're making, well, send some of it over here to the Airline Pilot Guy Coffee Fund. And just head over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee, and you'll find out how to do that. A couple different ways. First one is the Coffee Fund Classic method, the PayPal method. Since the last show, we have, Ed Steinfeld, Andrew Wilson, Aviator Services, Steve Trumbull, and Chris Fanelon. Hope I'm not butchering your name, Chris. In fact, his contribution came in just a couple hours ago, I think. And another way to contribute to the fund is by Patreon. And you can pledge a certain amount of money per episode. And all that information, again, is available on the website, airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And since the last show, we have 2 new patrons, and they are Mark Kloss and Glenn Toller. So thank you, new patrons, and thank you, all of you who have contributed to the fund since the last show and in the past at any point. Thank you very much for your valuable contributions to the show. And just a reminder, we'll be talking about it here during the show, is that we're heading over to Farnborough. There we go. In July of this year. I was going to say next year, but it's this year. And
It's a couple months off.
yeah, and we're going to have some ways for you to kind of, contribute to offsetting some of the costs for us to come over to London and or the south of London.
It's an expensive area as well. It's the most expensive area in the entire of England, so you need a fair amount of beer money, Jeff.
And especially if we end up staying at this guy's house, I'm sure we're going to have a lot of money.
Yeah, they come cheap, you know.
All right, well, thank you very much. Again, all that information is available on the website, airlinepilotguy.com. And now it is time for us to move on to the news. All right, let's start with retired Alaska Airlines captain is accused of piloting a plane while under the influence. The influence of what? Love? No, I think alcohol. David Hens Arnston, a 60-year-old former pilot for Alaska Airlines and resident of Newport Beach, was arrested Wednesday morning and arraigned on a federal charge in Los Angeles. A news release issued by the U.S. Attorney's Office said that he was released on a $25,000 bond in order to return to court February 10th. Citing a criminal complaint, authorities say that he, on June 20th, 2014, quite a while ago, so like more than a year and a half ago, flew from San Diego to Portland and then from Portland to Orange County. When he landed at John Wayne's Airport, authorities say he was selected for random drug and alcohol testing by the airline. Mr. Arntzen was taken off the airport and he was subjected to a random alcohol and drug test. Well, I love these news articles. They say something and then they change a couple of the words and then they say it again. Of course, somebody like me reading it should know that and not read this twice.
I was going to say, you don't have to read every sentence, Jeff.
I know. Well, at this point, I'm just doing the best I can. All right. Anyway, so let's see. Under federal law, a person operating a commercial airliner is presumed to be under the influence when his or her BAC level, blood alcohol level, is 0.10% or higher, which is that's a pretty low threshold, actually. And this was all in excess of the legal limit, according to one of the spokespersons. And one witness to it all was his co-pilot. In this case, this was the first officer indicated to the investigating agents that when the flight arrived in Orange County on June 20th, and the two of both pilots saw the drug tester awaiting at the gate as the flight was arriving, the first officer recalled the captain saying, "I bet it's for me." So, yeah, apparently he knew that he had some kind of a problem with alcohol, and you know what? I bet he was probably relieved to to see that, because I hear that people that have that kind of a substance abuse problem are, they're struggling, and they want to reach out and have somebody to help them. And I don't know.
Well, the trouble is, Jeff, if you wait until that time, then it's all a bit late. It ends up losing your job, you get caught, let alone the problems of flying in a very unsafe condition. If you can recognize your condition and seek assistance before it gets to that point, then people will move heaven and earth to help you. Because we know that this kind of addiction is more or less an illness. It's not something you do deliberately, and there are ways to get around it. There are plenty of pilots who are recovering, and when I say recovering, because I think someone who's been addicted to substance abuse will never say they're cured. They will always say they're recovering. But those that manage to keep themselves away from it can live a great life and continue with a very fulfilling career.
Now, how does it, like, talking about the operational and how the testing occurs? I guess it differs from airline to airline. In my experience, and the interesting part about this whole situation is that back in my passenger days, I was not tested as I guess repeatedly as I am now in my cargo days. I don't know why that is. I guess they think the cargo pilots are drunks, but it's not.
They're probably not far wrong. Oh.
Yeah. But the interesting thing here is that basically, like, at least for us, at least me and in the cargo division now, that you might get tested because you get your activation call a half hour before you're due to get it. So that's a big clue that you are going to be pulled from the briefing room, and then you're going to be taken to the infirmary, and then there's going to be a person there who's going to basically give you make you take a breathalyzer test, very much like the one that police officers administer on the roadside there. So you blow into the I guess the receptacle there, and you got to make sure that the test has to say come out 0, so absolutely no trace of alcohol whatsoever for you to be able to be released from that, and then go back to your flying duties.
That's a good point, Rick. You go back to your flying duties.
Well, I mean, if it says 0, I mean,
are you obliged to go back to your flying duties? Because the reason I say is that the British Airline Pilots Association in the UK, our union, strongly advised pilots that have had to undergo drug and alcohol testing to relieve themselves for duty for 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
No, for us, it's you're good to go. I mean, no alcohol here. You're clear. You're good to go.
No, it's considered to be an unusual event that occurs and obviously cause concern in your mind. And the feeling is that the tension that you build up, waiting for the result, even if you know that you should be passing and you have no concerns, is sufficient to distract you over the next couple of hours, which is a critical safety period with regards flying. So our union says take 24 hours off. And the company, Acme Red, they don't have a specific policy. But when they do a drug and alcohol test on a pilot, they generally speaking have a standby pilot available in case the pilot involved withdraws himself from
that was going to be my question, right? Because what if the pilot just is there somebody to cover the trip with the
the company, if they're going to put someone in place to test you, yes, they will make sure there is someone.
Okay. How does it work on Acme?
I've never heard of a situation where somebody showing up for work is getting a drug test or an alcohol test. It's always usually at the very end of the trip that you get the notification, or maybe sometime in the middle of the trip if there's like a big sit around or a big break between flights. But
so is this something you get via ACARS or a company frequency, or how does that work?
Yeah, we get a message on the ACARS, and then and it specifies who the person is on the crew. Employee number will be met by a member of, it doesn't specifically say you're going to have a pee test or blow, in a tube. It just basically says you're going to be met by somebody, and then so that you're going to be subjected to some kind of a random test.
Wow. Okay.
And that's during the flight you get that information?
Yeah.
Well, that for me, that has exactly the same impact on you that it would be if you had the test just before you're about to climb in the cockpit. So I'm scratching my head thinking, wouldn't it be a lot safer until you are approaching the gate? At least then you've got no time to sit and sweat over it. I mean, even if you think you're good, a test like this has amazing implications on your career. Because mistakes are made, and it's possible to get a false reading if you've taken a few actions that, like mouthwashes or use something like that might have a little bit of residual alcohol in it, and that would lead you up the garden path. It'd be dreadful.
That is true, and it's interesting you mentioned that, Captain Nick, because on, I guess, the way the test is administered at my airline, if there is any trace of any type of, just like you mentioned, one of these, mouthwashes or anything that might have some sort of residual alcohol content there, and that's not directly related to you drinking beforehand. Basically, what you're going to do is you're basically, pulled to the side. You are given a certain volume of water to drink, and then you have to let 30 minutes elapse. 30 minutes go by, and then you retake the test. And if it comes back, at 0-0, then you're good to go.
So you have two tests within 30 minutes of each other,
right? If the first test is not 0, I'm talking about if the first test comes back with a very minute trace. I'm not talking about anything close to what the legal limit would be, because that would be obvious that it's not mouthwash we're talking about.
Yeah, of course, legal limits vary around the world, and you are tested by more people than just our own companies, because it's quite likely that the authority in a certain country, Australia went through a period of this. I remember Sydney Airport, they were putting lots of pilots aside and giving them, and you've got to not only adhere to your company requirement and the requirement of the country your company is registered in, so that's Acme Red and the Civil Aviation Authority, as far as I'm concerned, but also the country you're operating in.
Right.
And if any of those has a lower limit than the one that you're kind of used to, like Australia is 0, UK is now 0, it didn't used to be, but it is now 0, then you can fall foul without even thinking about it, because you might go, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm in Australia, but that the company limits this, I should be fine for that. And then an Australian policeman pulls you aside, and you fail.
Right. When in Rome,
and when in France, don't the Air France pilots actually drink wine with their in-flight meals? Is that true or not?
I gather they used to. I've never actually spoken to one and found out whether it's true or not. But apparently in the old days, they used to have wine, albeit a little watered, with their meals. So,
I have heard that as well.
Yeah. It might be an old wife's tale. I don't know.
I don't know.
You're an old wife, Jeff.
Yes, I am. And
so tell us.
Well, I'll just never mind. I know I'm going to get in trouble if I proceed any further with that line of thinking. So what was I going to go with that? If you're an Air France pilot listening to the show, I doubt that any Air France pilot is listening to the show, but if you are,
what your vintage is, and no, I'm just kidding. No.
Tell us what the deal is, please. We'd like to know. Okay. So I think we've thrashed that one about enough, don't you think?
Right.
All right. Let's move on then. This is like, this deserves breaking news.
Stand by for news.
Plane wreckage found. Yes, they found some wreckage in Thailand, and they think it might be the missing Malaysia flight that went down, sometime last year? Or no, 2014. And of course, they really found out very quickly that this has nothing to do with a 777. It had something to do with some kind of a Japanese rocket or something, or Chinese rocket. So, oh well. So much for that.
It did look a bit like an airplane, though, didn't it?
I didn't actually see the piece that they found.
I saw it. I mean, it looked like the side of a fuselage or something similar. Perhaps, it even had sort of metal lugs on it that might have been the top of a cargo door. But then some clever spark found the the identical area on the side of this rocket booster for this huge, I guess, satellite positioning rocket. And when you looked at the two, you went, yeah, okay.
Never mind.
Yeah.
It was exciting when it came. It was like breaking news. I think I saw it on the Twitter feed or something. And then it was not long after that where they said, no, I don't think so. False alarm. Everybody, nothing to see here. Go back to work. Let's see. The FAA. Oh, this is an interesting one. Updates flight review guidance. In its advisory circular, or their recent advisory circular, the FAA cites a committee's finding that loss of control is the leading cause of general aviation accidents, and a study showing that loss of controls is most likely to occur when pilots lack proficiency. Loss of control, I should say, not controls. Making flight reviews and instrument proficiency checks, along with personal proficiency programs, particularly important in helping to prevent such accidents. Specifically, the FAA identifies traffic pattern operations, approaches to landing, and instrument conditions as the situations where loss of control is most likely to occur. And the FAA also notes that while modern avionics and flight automation equipment deliver enormous safety benefits, over-reliance on such technology can create hazards of its own. Where have you heard that before? To help mitigate these hazards, the FAA reminds certified flight instructors conducting flight reviews and instrument proficiency checks to ensure that a pilot under evaluation is proficient with any avionics and automated systems in the aircraft and knows what to do if it fails. So those are both critical components. You got to know what your automation system is doing, and you have to know how to fly an airplane if it decides to give you the controls of the airplane and says, I give up, I'm not flying the airplane anymore. And also in these findings, the committee's findings, the FAA recommends that CFIs emphasize the importance of angle of attack indicators in general aviation aircraft. And so CFIs are urged to ensure that the pilots understand what the equipment is and what it does and how to use it. So it's good to see that they're emphasizing this, and they're saying, what, I was kind of amazed that there are a lot of, even in the general aviation world, there's more and more automation going on, like with these Garmin 1000 systems and fancy things that people are up in small airplanes and general aviation airplanes, like hooking up the automation. And that's just astounding to me. I thought the reason why we want to fly these airplanes is to fly the airplane, but apparently not.
Well, yeah, I must admit, if I was getting a chance to go around and fly in a jet aircraft, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to practice flying skills. I kind of don't see the point in hooking up an automated system and, while away your few hours and your very expensive hours watching a little computer do it for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've mentioned how a couple of months ago I went up on a 182, I think it was, and it had this Garmin 1000 avionics suite, and it was, the level of information that was available to you was just, it was amazing. It had things that even my 777 doesn't have, the autopilot that you can couple with the ILS and just basically have the thing fly an instrument approach procedure by itself, and all you really have to do is manage the throttle manually. And I don't know if there's just I guess airplanes out there that the GA airplanes out there that have auto throttle type capabilities. I wouldn't be surprised if there were. But just as Captain Jeff and Captain Nick are saying here, the reason why you fly GA is because you want to fly GA. You want to fly the aircraft. And if I was going to fly a smaller aircraft, that's what I want to do. I wouldn't want the aircraft to fly itself. So it's interesting to see how this is. It's been an issue with commercial airline pilots, and it's now beginning to be an issue with GA pilots, which are, I guess, pilots that don't have the, level of, I don't want to say experience, because there certainly are, GA pilots out there who've been flying for many, many years, but the majority of GA pilots don't have the type of experience and hours that we airline pilots have, and to have the airplane do everything for a GA pilot is just kind of I don't know. I think it's just asking for trouble. So I think it's good that the FAA is kind of taking notice of this and making sure that GA pilots are able to hand fly the aircraft when it comes to that.
Stay calm and fly the airplane.
Yeah, after all, if you're not learning to do it in a GA aircraft, where are you going to learn to do it?
I don't know. Good point. Okay, well, as I mentioned in the teaser at the beginning of the show, looks like another incident at JFK and the same airline, American Airlines, a flight coming in from Mexico, I believe, was arriving at JFK, and they got off the airplane, and they were supposed to go through, they're coming in from Cancun, and they walked off the airplane Monday morning without having their passports or bags checked. And they just went off and went on with their lives without going through any kind of customs or immigration. Now, if I were them, I'd think, wow, this is nice. Not having to go through the hassles of customs and immigration. But that's not such a good thing, especially in this world we live in with the threat of terrorism and everything else. And one of the people interviewed for this article said that the airline called them up and said, would you please come back and go through customs and security and everything. They were begging people to come back, but pretty much it was like game over at that point.
Yeah, because that's the thing. How do you run everybody back up? How do you? Is that even possible? It's and I wonder what kind of penalty does an airline get? Because I know that if a passenger service agent for some reason forgets to check the visa of a passenger and actually sends them to the U.S. or to any other country that requires a visa, and that passenger makes it onto the plane and onto his destination without a visa or any kind of snafu like that, it's a very, very stiff penalty for the airline. I can't even begin to imagine what the penalty must be for an airline that, or I guess the gate agents, or I don't know what the deal is here, but to have an entire plane full of passengers walk off an international flight into the unprotected area, I guess the domestic arrivals, and just, mosey on through and into the city like nothing happened. So I wonder what the penalty is there. It's got to be
it's got to be down at the airport, surely. The airline sort of herds them off onto the jetway, but then it's the airport that sorts out where they go after that. So if they've been directed straight out of the terminal.
And the interesting thing is, I remember, because we talked about this several episodes ago, and it was also American Airlines, I believe.
In November.
Yeah, and one of the and this is the reason why I love the live show so much, because we get great participation from you guys and gals in the chat room, and somebody pointed out that, and this is true, how the actual jetway that connects the aircraft to the terminal, well, that's one part. And then there is a glass door that is going to swing, either open or close. And that glass door is going to separate the domestic side of the terminal from the international side of the terminal. And so if it's a domestic flight that's arriving into that particular gate, then the glass door is going to basically block off the passageway that would take you through Federal Inspection Service and onto Immigration and Customs. And if it's an international flight, then that glass door is going to close off, and it's going to basically lead you down that corridor into the FIS portion of the airport. So I guess whoever's managing the position
the
of that
glass door,
right, which is usually an airline employee, basically a passenger service agent, basically has a key or a card or whatever that basically controls the position of that door.
What do you think, Jeff?
He knows I just took a bite of my slice of pizza. I think that what you guys are saying is just priceless, and I think you should go on.
Yeah, we should discuss glass door operators for a long time now.
Yes. There was a passenger quoted here. He knew something was not right. He knew that he was supposed to be going through customs, immigration, whatever. And it's not clear to me in this article who he approached, whether it was somebody from the airline or TSA. He said, I told them what happened and asked them what I should do. And then they said to me, oh, that's fine. You're okay. Go ahead. Whatever.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
now there are certain flights, and I know there's a I know the new Speedbird 1 flight, I guess the flight that used to be operated by Concorde, which is now
that beautiful Concorde, and now a little short dumpy Airbus.
So now Airbus, it's a 318, I believe.
Yeah,
it flies out of London City Airport, but basically they fly to London City, and then they land in Ireland, and then all the passengers get off the plane there and clear immigration and customs in Ireland, U.S. immigration and customs to come into our country.
You're sounding like a British Airways advert there, Rick.
And I'm sure Acme Red's got something like that now.
No. Okay. We don't go to Ireland.
And so that's one instance where I can think, an international airline coming into the United States would have passengers disembark, I guess just as a domestic flight, but that's because they've already cleared immigration and customs as somewhere else. But this is completely different.
At least I appreciate there's no security risk to the airline. It's not like they're getting on without going through security. They're just invading your country.
Basically, and we don't appreciate that.
Well, actually, having met a few immigration officers, I think they're probably quite right.
Tell them to stop talking when I'm playing my sound clips.
I have very little patience for stupidity.
No, he just did it. Okay, everybody, here, I'm going to turn the microphones off.
I have very little patience for stupidity.
And that is so true in so many ways. Okay, let's see. When you see me pushing a button here, that means I'm playing a sound clip.
Oh, I thought you were just doodling.
Okay, continuing on, speaking of stupidity, and here's another instance of somebody not very smart, a German tourist on board a Jet Airways flight, an Indian airline. After landing, where were they landing? In Mumbai International Airport. They were taxiing in after landing, and a man identified as Steve Titzler told flight attendants that, he went over to one of the emergency exit doors and tried to open it. And he told the flight attendants he opened the door just for fun. Cabin crew weren't amused, and the man could now face criminal charges after he was handed over to police at Mumbai's International Airport.
And he'll be put in prison just for fun.
Oh, fun. We should have some kind of a nice, fun sound effect to play here. Like, how about this? That's what he's doing right now in the prison. Or,
It's starting to sound a bit manic now.
Yeah,
it's getting a bit worried.
Creepy, I'm going to spend the rest of the show just playing these laugh tracks. Okay, it happened again. I don't know if you heard about this. Interesting. I guess sometime last year this happened, and it happened just recently again. And the article talks about an American Airlines flight. Of course, we know it was not American Airlines. It was one of their connection carriers, and they refer to it as American Eagle. But I believe now it's not even American Eagle. I think it's Envoy that is the technical name of the airline. But it was an American Airlines flight 3339, departed from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex at 9:41 p.m. on Wednesday. I guess that was last week, or a couple weeks ago, whatever, and arrived above Wichita Falls Regional Airport, just north in Texas, at 10:04. But what happened next depends on who you ask. Airline spokespeople said on Friday that the flight's pilot saw only dark runways below him, and after circling the landing zone and trying unsuccessfully to call airport staff, returned to Dallas-Fort Worth International. Federal Aviation Administration guidelines prohibit landings on runways that are not illuminated. Two airline officials were adamant in an interview by Times Record News that the incident was not the fault of American Airlines or its subsidiary, American Eagle. Even they said American Eagle. Well, I guess they're still calling it that. Unfortunately, due to some type of issue from the airport level, landing was not possible, according to American Airlines. John Burris, the Wichita Falls Director of Aviation, Traffic and Transportation, said a preliminary investigation shows that at least one runway was illuminated on Wednesday night. Passengers interviewed in connection with a review of the situation bear that out, he said. There's not an issue with the runway lighting, Burris said. Wichita Falls airport runways and their lights are maintained by Shepherd Air Force Base per a lease agreement. I think it's one of those joint use airports where they have a military side and a civilian side. And a base official said on Friday night that lights on their runways were turned off at 9 p.m. due to a scheduled closure. But Fort Worth Air Traffic Control, the airline's dispatch center, were told that the plane could land on another civil runway leased by the city. So I guess there was another runway in that whole airport complex that they were supposed to be using instead of the one, I guess, that they were normally used to using. After reviewing the data for the flight in question, it was determined that the lights for the city-owned open runway were, in fact, turned on. Shepherd Air Force Base Air Traffic Control notified Fort Worth Center and the airline's dispatch to expect to use the civil runway for landing. So there's like a he said, she said kind of thing going on. And the article continues to talk about pilot-controlled lighting, which I thought would be something good to talk about here. In at least some nighttime landings, pilots are responsible for activating the runway lights. This is done using a microphone and a radio frequency. The company said a microphone or radio malfunction was not the cause of the snafu. But in the previous incident, April of last year, a similar incident occurred, and the pilot diverted a flight back to DFW after arriving over Wichita Falls. In that case, city and base officials determined the problem was caused by pilot error. And so continuing with pilot-controlled lighting, who wants to talk about that?
Yeah, I guess the only airport that I have experience that I have actually used pilot control lighting in is the old Quito Airport, and I still remember the frequencies. It was 122.8 for runway 35 and 123.0 for runway 17. I can't believe I remember that.
Get those rickets out.
Yeah. There you go.
You know, it's kind of sad that you actually remember that.
It's sad, so sad. It's a sad situation.
I don't have any other happy memories down there, I guess.
That piece of your brain could actually be used for something useful, Rick.
I know.
So what is pilot-controlled lighting? How's that work?
Well, so basically what you do, there are frequencies that are assigned to the lighting of a runway, as we just mentioned. And so let's go back to the Quito example. You could actually control the intensity of the runway lights depending on the number of clicks that you give your microphone on that particular frequency. Now, I believe it was 7 for maximum intensity. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay, so 7 for maximum intensity and 3 for low and 5 for medium. Yeah, that's basically what I remember. Yep. And so if you want to, if the lights are in medium and then you want to go to, if you want lights are in low and you want to go to medium, then you click the mic 5 times and then it goes to medium. And you want to go to high, you click it 7 times and it goes to high. So it's basically how it works. And usually the lights are controlled by the tower. But in airports that have this type of setup, it says it right there on the approach plate and gives you the frequency, the applicable frequency for each runway that has that capability, and you just basically control the lights that way. That's pretty nifty.
Yeah, do you have that kind of system over there in
the UK? I'm not. There may be uncontrolled airports that use it. In fact, I'd be surprised if there aren't. But I have used it out in Australia a fair amount when I was on F-18s out there. One of our primary diversions from Williamtown was Dubbo, which was an uncontrolled airport, and we used to go up there. And if you needed to land at night, you'd fire up the lights by doing that little trick of transmitting over that particular frequency. But when we were doing those rather long and boring night navexes, sometimes we used to keep ourselves amused by firing up the lights of every airport we went past. And it was well over 20 years ago, guys, but I do apologize now for the electricity bills of all those various little cities that we went past and continually fired up their lights, but it used to help us navigate too.
You pilots. Scandalous. So basically, once you've activated the pilot-controlled lighting, this starts a 15-minute cycle or timer. And then if you change the intensity by doing another series of clicks, it restarts the 15-minute timer. And in addition to the runway lights, the pilot-controlled lighting may also activate visual approach slope indicators, or we call them VASIs, precision approach path indicators, or PAPIs, and runway end identifier lights, we call them reels, to conserve energy. Some non-tower airports put their VASI and PAPI on pilot-controlled lighting during the day. And so if you're flying into a place, if you're a general aviation pilot, and the VASI or the PAPI lights are off during a daylight approach, try turning them on with the pilot-controlled lighting that we just talked about. So interesting. I don't know if you remember my story going into Grand Rapids late at night. It was after the tower was closed. And in that case, we were just using the tower frequency to do the number of clicks to turn on the lights. And it was like a beautiful, clear night, but there was no moon, and it was like severely dark. So we clicked the lights, and they came on high intensity, and it was like blinding intensity. And I'm going, okay, let's bring them down a little bit to like low or medium. So we did the 3 clicks for low, and then just turned everything off. And so we tried the 5 clicks for medium, nothing. Did the 7 again for the high intensity. So it was either high intensity or absolutely no lights at all. Of course, it's not legal to land on a runway without the lights, and so we just left them on high intensity, and I smashed it on that runway because it was like I didn't have any peripheral or any feeling or depth of perception or anything coming in. It was just blinding light. But we made it.
You should have put your sunglasses on, Jeff.
There you go.
I didn't think of that.
And remember how we've talked about the difference between your standard run-of-the-mill, I guess, incandescent runway light versus the LED lights. And I flew to Basel the other day, and beautiful LED setup they have there, and they have it dialed in just right. It's one of those where it's not super bright, it's not super dim, it's just right. It's
the Goldilocks of lights.
Yeah, it takes a little bit getting used to, actually, because incandescent lights LED lights, when I first started flying in airports that had LED lights, it really did take a little bit of getting used to the brightness.
There are several airports here in the U.S. that are installing the LED lighting systems, and when they first started doing it, they were way too, even at their lowest levels, they were still too bright, and there were a lot of complaints about it, and the unions and the FAA asked for pilot input on it, and they've fixed it. They've tweaked the system so that the light intensity is much more, you could cope with it much better now. So there we go.
Now, just one question about this guy flying over an unlit runway. Do any of your runways have only unidirectional lights, or do they all have a mix of omni and unis? Because my thought was that unless he was lined up on the center line, he might not have been able to see the lights, because if they were unidirectional, they'd only be pointing down the runway.
Yeah, but I figure if it's a smaller, type regional airport, I feel like the omnidirectional lights are, I guess the cheaper setup, and if
cheap and cheerful, is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I'm saying, if it's, I guess a smaller type airport would have omnidirectional.
It would make sense just to have omnis, wouldn't it? Because they work in all directions. Yeah.
So good point.
Do you hear that?
Are we being watched?
I don't know. It kind of sounds like drones nearby. Wait, look, outside of our window, there's a drone with a camera.
Oh,
hey.
Thank God he hasn't got a missile.
Speaking of drones, we always talk about drones in the show, at least a little bit. We talked about the fact that the Federal Aviation Administration started the registration system for, we shouldn't call them drones, UAS or UAVs. And they said nearly 300,000 owners have registered their small unmanned aircraft in the first 30 days after the Federal Aviation Administration's online registration system went live. Owners who registered in the first month received a refund for the $5 application fee, so it's basically free. I'm surprised, actually. I'm kind of blown away by that figure that many people have already registered their UAVs.
Well, that must be about 1%, Jeff.
Well, yeah, probably but even so, I'm still amazed.
I'm only guessing there, guys. I don't think it really is 1%. It's quite a fair number.
It is a fair number. I'm glad that it that it's actually working. Good. Just operate those drones responsibly and don't get in trouble.
All right, it's now time for the best part of the show. The end. No, just kidding.
Captain, incoming message.
Do you guys need to take a break at all?
I'm good for a little while. I've run out of beer. That's the only
Yeah,
problem.
we need a beer break, and so
Okay. So we're going to take a beer / pizza / physiological break.
/ break.
/ It's almost at the hour point. Hello, everybody in the blab world. Let's. I'm sorry that I'm not able to, or we're not able to monitor what you're saying in there because the screen that we're looking at for the Evernote and our show notes are taking up all the real estate there. So occasionally we'll pop over here to. There we go. So now we can see what you guys are seeing. And let's see, how many do we have right now? 23 and 81 complete. Could you do one more of the? Yeah.
Is that can I'll have that? Or?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. Turn the water in your toilet a funny color.
Oh no!
Sorry.
I think there's a public restroom out there in the lobby.
I saw a rest stop about 40 miles.
Yeah, it's like there is a gas station right next to the hotel here that they have restrooms.
Only in America can they have light switches that go sideways.
Well, and that's not normal. I had the same problem, amongst others. Okay, let's see. Thinking of joining the CAP. Thoughts about them? Yeah, that's a good program, I think. I don't have a lot of experience with it myself, but I've heard a lot of people say, Sam, that it's a good program. Do you have any experience with that, Rick?
No, not with CAP, but it's a good program. It's I don't know too much about it, but I've heard good things.
Micah, we're at the Doubletree Suites or Doubletree Hotel, a Hilton property in Palm Beach Gardens. And if it's a no, thank you. If it's a shorter layover, then they'll put us closer to the airport. But this anything more than 12 hours at Acme usually is a longer hotel location, or I'm not saying that right. It's usually farther away from the airport and closer to like a downtown area or an area of town where there's more things to do and restaurants and that kind of thing. Further, thank you, Joshua. Let's see. So, let's see. Miami. Oh, where did it go? Dave from the boat just posted a picture of that. That's from the app, isn't it? Looks like it. Yeah, those are the pictures we have in the app.
Oh, that's better. I hope you don't mind, Jeff. I use your toothbrush to clean up.
Oh, no, not at all. Just make yourself at home. Okay, it was a big mistake to invite him to be part of the APG crew. What do we do now? Oh, wait a minute. I think he's listening.
Too late. What's happened there? Downloading enhanced.
Oh, what is going on? Hey, what happened? I don't want that. Did I accidentally click something?
Said the captain.
Undo.
Control Z.
Oh, that's right. I shouldn't say Z. I should say Z.
You don't have to turn into an Anglophile, you know.
That's true. I should just keep my.
Well, a nice combination would be good. Yeah.
But I have to admit though, there are some things that you guys say I just love, and I think I'm going to start saying it because I just love the way you guys say it. Then other things I think, why are they saying that?
Well, I must admit, nowadays on my PAs, I find it very hard to say toilet. It sounds awfully rude compared with restroom.
Restroom.
Yes.
The toilet. The water closet.
No, that's not the water closet.
Why is it
if I said water closet, 99% of the people on board wouldn't know what I was talking about. Really? They start opening the cupboards and peeing in them.
Where's the water? So what is a loo? Why do you call it a loo?
No, that's one that's I haven't a clue. If you ask me,
I thought he knows this stuff.
I'm not an expert.
I thought you were familiar with the lingo.
I'm not an expert on lavatorial habits. Lou, I could find out for you. I've got a lovely book at home called
Uncle John's
Red
Bathroom
Herrings.
Well, I got that book. It's a really good book.
What's that?
Uncle John's Bathroom Reader.
Oh, okay.
It's basically,
Is that all about Thomas Crapper?
He's in it.
Oh yeah, he would be. Yeah,
He's a big contributor.
Was it Thomas Crapper?
I think it was Thomas Crapper, wasn't it?
So,
Yeah, that's
how would you spell Lou?
L-double-O.
L-double-O.
Oh, ooh sound. Ooh, one.
So
more
I
than
have
one
this
O.
thing called Looperman. No, I was going to use Google, but apparently that pulled up something entirely different. But it's okay. It's clean. It's family friendly. I just don't know what it is. Okay, we're going to click that tab off. And in lieu of, I don't know, Joshua. I don't think so. Let me try it again. We're all going to learn together because that's what we do here on the APG show. L-O-O. And what does it say? Why do I keep going to this site? Looperman.
It's cached. I don't know.
You need to go to the Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary says right.
All right. Urban.
There it
Urban
is.
Dictionary Lou.
There you
Fascinating.
Lou.
go. There it is.
Lou time.
Well, it tells us all. There's lots of synonyms there.
Okay.
Origin of the
skip to
term.
the loo, my darling.
Very good.
Really? Is that what they're saying in this? Skip to the loo, my darling. Wow. Micah's in here.
What, in the loo?
Yeah.
Wow.
Micah says, "Oh my God, I just wanted to party." Nathan says, "Ha ha 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 ha, Lou."
That answers it then.
That makes so much sense. It's Micah's fault.
Now it's clear.
Well, we're just going to have to set this aside and figure out what it really means in the future. We've gone down a rabbit hole here. Sorry. Okay, or a rat hole, probably.
Or a loo hole.
A loo hole. All right. Never mind.
What are the French things called that you squat over?
A bidet.
No. You don't shit in a bidet.
We need to tell them about the proper use of language.
I do apologize.
Okay. Now we're in the feedback section.
I'm sorry. We didn't record that, did we? No, we didn't.
I'll edit it out.
Good man. Good man.
Since he's joined us, it's been a lot more work editing these shows.
It's like we record for 4 hours, but the show's like 20 minutes.
I'll have this finished editing in like a week. Okay. A couple of you sent in, Virtual Captain Paul and Babesh, links to the investigation. I think it was on the 24th of December. It was kind of busy toward the end of the year with Christmas time and the 200th anniversary and all that kind of stuff. We didn't get to a lot of this stuff, but we did want to talk about it. And of course, that was the 737-500 crash in Tatarstan. There we go. In Russia. I don't know. Is it Russia or
Or adjacent to?
Yeah, one of the countries over there. And apparently they were on approach and they were not lined up for landing, and they initiated a go-around just to kind of remind you of this accident. And during the go-around, they lost control of the aircraft, and it just went up to like a very hideously steep angle, like 75 degrees or something like that, and then it came down even more hideously and almost vertically right down on the airport property, like crashed. And there was a video of it and everything else. It's just horrific. And the agency in Russia that does these reports, the MAK, and I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce what MAK stands for. And in fact, I don't even have it written down here, so I can't even try. But they came out with a report regarding this accident, and they said that the probable causes of the crash were systemic weaknesses in identifying and controlling the levels of risk, non-functional safety management system in the airline, and a lack of control over the level of crew training by aviation authorities at all levels, including the Tatarstan Civil Aviation Authority, the Russian Civil Aviation Authority, that resulted in an unqualified crew being assigned to the flight. During the go-around, the crew recognized that the autopilot had disconnected, resulting in the aircraft impacting the ground in a complex spatial position, nose-up upset. The captain, who was the pilot flying, lacked the skills to recover the aircraft from the complex spatial upset. Lack of upset recovery that led to significant negative G-forces, a loss of spatial orientation, sending the aircraft into a steep dive. Again, 75 degrees nose down with impact until impact with the ground. The go-around was required because the aircraft on its final approach arrived in a position from which landing was impossible as a result of a map shift by about 4,000 meters, which is approximately 2.5 miles. So the inability of the crew in those circumstances to combine aircraft control and navigation with needed precision, and the lack of active support by air traffic control during prolonged observation of significant deviation from the approach procedure. So ATC was also a little bit to blame here because they could see, tracking them on radar, that they were not aligned with the runway, that they were significantly off course. And so the following factors listed in logical order but not sorted by priority contributed to the accident. The captain not having primary flight training. I don't know what that means.
Well, we did kind of touch on this a couple episodes ago on the crew had come from flying Eastern built aircraft on a Western built aircraft, and the interpretation of the attitude indicator and how how in Western type aircraft the aircraft symbol is stationary and the horizon moves around it, and in Eastern type aircraft the horizon is stationary and the aircraft symbol moves around it. That's one thing. Another thing we want to maybe touch on here is what is the definition of a unusual attitude. And basically unusual attitude is any time, and this is in commercial aviation, people that have flown military aircraft like Captain Nick and Captain Jeff, they go through upset recovery and they fly in types of maneuvers and scenarios that us purely civilian pilots, we're really not exposed to that. So we really don't know how to, which I think it's, to something that we should perhaps be exposed to. But anyway, going back to what a unusual attitude is before the crickets get played here. Too late. So basically, anytime you have a pitch up attitude of over 25 degrees, anytime you have a pitch down attitude of over 10 degrees, and anytime you're banked more than 45 degrees to one side or another, that is an unusual attitude. Another thing I wanted to mention here, map shift. What is a map shift? What does that mean? The 737-500 was basically produced by Boeing to replace the old 737-200. They're very similar in size, very similar performance-wise. But the main difference between the 200 and the 500 is that the 500 has the combined, the newer type flight deck instrumentation suite, very similar to the 757s and 767s that I'm so familiar with. And now when we talk about map shift, basically map shift, what that means is that on your navigation display, which is basically the display or the screen that's going to give you the position of your aircraft in relationship to your active route or your other airport or nav aid facilities along the way or whatever. This type of information needs to be updated. And in the days of older type aircraft like the 737-500, like the older 757-200s and 300s, the way that the map position was updated was with either two VORs, or very high frequency omnidirectional radio ranges, or basically navigational stations. And basically what the computer would do is it would take a radial off of one VOR, a radial off another VOR, and basically where those two radials meet, that was the position of the aircraft, and that would be fed to the system, and the position would be updated that way. Now, that's one way. Another way is basically what's called radial DME. So off one VOR. You would take a radial off of that VOR, and if that VOR had DME, and DME stands for distance measuring equipment, so the distance on that radial off of that VOR basically was the position of your aircraft. That position was fed into the system, and the system would update the position of the aircraft on your navigation display. Now, if you let a number of minutes or I forget what the exact time is, but if a certain time elapses between updates, then the error that is contained on that, because these are all inertial systems, so that error keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and your position keeps getting less accurate and less accurate because you have no updates to your position. And so it can get to the point where your aircraft might be somewhere that is nowhere near where you should be. And if you're trying to shoot an instrument approach in these types of conditions, then it's going to be very, very tricky to basically do that, because first, you don't know where you are, and then you don't know where you should be pointed. And add to this the fact that you're flying an aircraft that you're not familiar with at night, tired in IMC conditions, and we can see how the holes in the Swiss cheese model start to line up, and then bad things start to happen.
Absolutely. And also recited in this report, in addition to all those factors you just mentioned, the lack of primary flight training, the fact that they were fatigued, and systematic violation of crew work and rest hours, a large debt of holidays, et cetera, could have been a major factor in this accident. Also, flight crew members being allowed to upgrade to the Boeing 737 without satisfying the required qualifications, including the English language. So that was another thing that was cited here in the report, amongst others.
Right. And now this is something that I'm very much exposed to, because I fly for an airline where a lot of the pilots, I'd say most of the pilots, English is not their first language. And so that being the case, all of us, myself included, had to go through an exam to prove to the regulatory authority that we were or are indeed able to communicate to the level where we need to be, so that we can operate the aircraft in a safe manner. And now there are, and this, I guess the grading system is, it goes from 1 to 6, 1 being no good, obviously. 4 is the bare minimum for you to be able to operate in and out of the United States or countries where English is the primary language. 5 is, pretty good. And then 6 is native speaker. Now, the difference between 4, 5, and 6 is that if you score a 6, you basically don't ever have to take that exam again. If you score a 5, you have to take the exam, I believe it's every 5 or 6 years. And if you score a 4, then you have to go back and take that exam every couple of years. So kind of like a recurrent type thing. Now, don't quote me on those numbers. I don't remember the numbers exactly because I've never had to deal with that problem, but it's basically that. So 4, you have to take the recurrent every, I guess, very, very much often. 5, you take the recurrent, but, further apart. And then 6, you basically don't ever have to worry about that exam again. So just to make sure that you're able to speak the language at the level where it needs to be for you to be able to make yourself understood and operate the aircraft in a safe fashion.
A lot of people, speaking of language, a lot of people listen to this show to listen to us speak English. And for all of you doing that, I apologize. When you take that test and you don't really score as well as
one of us speaks English.
The Queen's English.
Of course. And if we had a king, it would be the King's English.
And that's the reason why we have this guy here, because it kind of lowers our liability for all of the people in the world that are using us as a benchmark for their English.
But you know what? It's true. I guess the way we Americans kind of vocalize is way, way different than that the Brits do. And I believe, and I think, and I know that, I guess, British English is so much easier to understand, and it just sounds
vocalize.
You just Arsenal. That's a football team. Arsenal. Very good.
You just sound a lot smarter, when you have a British accent, I think.
Don't you believe it, man? Don't you believe it?
Trust me, I don't anymore. I used to.
But now you know me.
I know a lot of these guys, and I've heard them speak, and I'm thinking,
yeah, because we feed so many colloquialisms into our language, which are only really understood by those of us that speak it regularly, that it all becomes a bit of mishmash. And mine's a combination of Australian, American, and English now, so heaven knows.
It reminds me, years and years ago, my wife and I had what do they call it when you have a ticket series, like a season ticket, I guess, for the opera in Atlanta, and all these like Italian operas and German operas, they'd have like the super titles, so you could understand what they were singing about and saying. And one of the operas was a British comic opera, and they were speaking English, but I could not understand a word. I don't know what kind of accent it was. Maybe a Cockney, or maybe I don't know what it was, but I'm thinking I need to have those super titles up there to understand what they were talking about.
You mean subtitles?
Well, no, in this case, they were not sub; they were super, because they put them above the stage, and that's why they call them super titles.
Well, I thought they were that good.
They were super subtitles. Anyway, so that's neither here nor there. So at this time, I will play something like one of these cool bumpers. And we'll move on with more feedback. This is from Paul. He said, I'm an A&P technician, an airframe and power plant technician. So is Rick over here at Newark, EWR, United Subcontinental. I've written to you in the past, but I'm not sure if you've ever received the email. Well, yes, I did, Paul, and we were just throwing them away every time we saw it was from you. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what happened to it. Anyway, I'm quite sure you get tons of feedback. Yes, we do. And perhaps just didn't get a chance to respond. I'm currently on episode 128, and I've made it my mission to listen to every single episode in order. Uh-oh.
That's APG syndrome.
It is. And there's no cure for that. You know what? I meant to get that darn sound clip, and I forgot again. Oh, well. I'm looking forward to catching up to your latest episodes that I might contribute with a question or an answer. I've been in the power plant division for 15 years, and I'm very familiar with the CFM 56, the RB 211, the CF6, and the GE 90. I also have some experience with the IAE V2500s. He puts in there the 320, and I might add the MD90 and the Pratt & Whitney 4000. Feel free to contact me whenever you're at Newark. I would love to treat you to some Starbucks. Oh, I'd love to share a cup of coffee with you, sir. Well, we can each have our own. Enclosed is a photo of a GE90 propulsor core and a completed CFM56, just to give you a visual reference of how much larger the GE90 is. Okay, and we have the pictures here that we're looking at. You can't see if you're listening to this, but I'll try to remember to include this photo.
It's a jet engine, Jeff.
Oh, is that what that is?
I have a question for Paul, actually.
Okay, Paul.
Having flown the 340-300 with 4 CFM 56s C2 version, I would very much like if Paul could explain to me the difference between one of those and a hairdryer.
That is an easy answer. None.
Yeah. How Airbus thought that 4 of those were sufficient to get an A340-300 off the ground safely, I do not know.
I do like the reverser system on those. That kind of look like
oh yeah, the little spikes that come.
Yeah, it looks like well,
flower petals. Never really went fast enough to need reversers, did it?
Interesting looking setup there. Yeah.
No, it just took forever to get to altitude. And geez, I remember climbing out of Hong Kong, and admittedly it was a warm night, but we took an hour and 45 minutes to get to flight level 295.
What?
Not kidding.
What was it, like ISI +1?
It was about +15.
Okay.
I said +15 out there.
I was being coy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He was attempting to be funny.
No, okay, sorry.
You see the crickets.
Oh, the crickets are laughing. Oh,
got
right.
me.
Okay, that's cool.
Those are my boys.
Speaking of no, never mind. Okay. So thank you, Paul, for that. If we have any engine-related questions other than the one that Captain Nick just asked, we'll know who to go to whom to go. To whom shall we go? Paul. Okay. Let's move on. Big Ron. I don't know where I'm going. Sent this link to an article in the Daily Mail Online. Big Ron. Hey, man. Look forward to seeing you over there in London in July. It may seem a little pie in the sky, but in the not too distant future, commercial airliners could be flown without co-pilots under an EU-backed project designed to improve safety and cut the cost of flying. Aircraft manufacturers are working on a project that could eventually lead to the introduction of a single pilot operation on commercial jets. I just don't see this happening. But whatever. Thanks for the link to the article, Big Ron, and just making our day. Speaking of, that reminds me of a question I had for Captain Nick. You said you came over from London to Miami as a cruise pilot. Yeah. And at Acme, the cruise pilots are all first officers. I don't think they use any I'm not even sure you can use a captain to do the cruise position, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I've never flown international at Acme to know if that's true or not. But do you get your normal hourly pay rate, or do you get like a lower rate?
I get a salary regardless of what I do and how many hours I fly. So
that makes sense now. That's why they can use captain, or because you're going to get paid the same no matter what.
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay. All right. And it's not going to cost the company anymore either.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was a good question. That was a bad question. It was a good answer.
Easy answer. The easiest tonight.
Okay, let me make this print larger so I can read it from my computer 6 feet away. Okay, this is from Captain Ollie. He says, hello, team. A question for the pros out there. So this is for Rick and Nick, not me. Maybe more specific to your European pilots. Like Captain Nick, our minima for takeoff is 125 meters, but there is a caveat, which is used, I believe, incorrectly, stating that if lined up, a pilot can use his visual assessment and can see 90 meters. If he can see that, he can depart. Last week in Europe, in my home base, we had visibility of 100, 100, 100. People were taking off using pilot assessment.
Naughty people.
Okay.
If an RVR is declared, you must adhere to it.
So it's not like I can use the option of using visual assessment and blow off the RVR,
Nope.
which is Runway Visual Range. It's a system that we use, like they're what are they called? The transmissometers,
Yep.
Lights that kind of measure the intensity of the light over a certain distance.
Exactly right.
Can someone more astute than me clarify this, please? No, nobody here on the panel tonight can do that.
Certainly not. And I certainly don't know the ARSA document it comes from. I can only quote using my company manuals. And the company manuals say if RVRs are stated, they must be adhered to.
Same here. RVR is RVR. And if it's stated, then that is what it is. And you can't go below that. And even more so, the fact that it's stated just makes it the basic, the bottom level of visibility that you could possibly have to perform your takeoff. There's no pilot, assessment involved there.
No, there's no way to interpret an RVR. It's got to be within limits.
Now, there are systems out there that we as pilots are going to rely on for low visibility takeoffs. We've talked about this. In our case, the paravisual display, which is a system that basically works off of the localizer beam. That's basically the lateral portion of the instrument landing system. We're going to use that to aid us in maintaining center line during takeoff. And I believe, Captain Nick, they have that on the PFD.
That's exactly right. A wee little needle.
Right. And
primary flight display.
Primary flight display. And so, yeah. But for my airline as well, it's 125 meters. And if it gets below that, then nope, sorry, no takeoff.
Very interesting. So thanks, Captain Oliver, for your question and listening to the show. And we appreciate all your expertise as well. Just quickly, Allentown Rick sent this link to an article. Not Miami Rick, but Allentown Rick. Is he related to you?
He's my cousin from up north. He speaks with a Yank accent, where I try to have a bit of a southern drawl myself. So
a southern drawl. Oh, come on,
guys! I need to hear the difference. I don't know.
Well, you're gonna have to send in some audio feedback there, cousin, and that way we can compare.
All right, cuz. Anyway, thanks for sending this link to this article. Could the Delta lawsuit have a chilling effect on aftermarket carpets aftermarket cockpits? It's an article from Aviation Week in Space Technology, December 23rd, 2015. And basically it talks about the fact that Delta Airlines had contracted with IS&S, Innovative Solutions and Support, to do an upgrade to the cockpit instrumentation systems, and also upgrade the FMSs to include GPS capabilities. And it was kind of it didn't work out too well. The company kind of promised some stuff and showed some demonstrators in the simulator, and Delta Airlines was not impressed with what they were kind of coming up with. And anyway, it kind of just went on and on and on. And finally, Delta said, no, we're not going to do this anymore. We're running out of patience, and we're going to cancel the contract. And this company now is suing Delta for non-payment and et cetera. So if you want to read more about all the details of this, just look for the link in the show notes. But thank you, Allentown Rick, for giving that to us and making us aware of it. Look at this beautiful picture of a Acme jet at Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is a beautiful part of our country. And he said, I listen to your podcast frequently, and I thought I would share a picture I recently took while at the Jackson Hole Airport. I was returning to Jackson Hole to fly our passengers from Driggs, Idaho, back to Dallas, Texas. Our C-525 Cessna is based in Denton, Texas, currently a Part 135 operation. And anyway, he says, thanks for the great podcast. That is the Teton Mountains in the background, the Grand Tetons.
That's a beautiful looking place, but I would hate to do a night approach in there.
Yeah, it's pretty demanding.
Pretty sporting.
Yes. I've never done it myself, but I've heard that it's pretty sporty. So thank you, Randy, for listening and sending feedback. We appreciate it. Beautiful picture, by the way. All right. Continuing, Larry Gregory in Tulsa, Oklahoma, sent this link to an article talking about the Boeing 787, the Dreamliner. You know, we don't talk about that airplane very much anymore. It looks like they've worked out a lot of the glitches involved with at least the battery, the lithium-ion battery.
Well, I was going to say we don't talk about it because they're very rarely flying.
Oh, ooh.
Well, certainly in our outfit, they seem to be having a dreadful serviceability rate. Yes.
Oh, that's not good. You need a reliable airplane, that's for sure. Well, I guess this article is talking about some issues that has to do specifically with the ADS-B system that is mandated by the FAA by, I think, like 2020 or something like that.
Yeah, even you'll be able to have one, Jeff.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
You'll be able to see all these other airplanes around with you and their call signs, and you'll better reroute to them. And then
I don't want to see all those other airplanes out there. I'm much happier knowing that I'm just by myself up there. And then I hear these voices talking on the radio. Anyway, apparently there's a little glitch with the way that the system on the 787 is parsing these digital packets and stuff. It's a technological thing, but apparently if it doesn't send a steady stream of this information, the system will basically interpolate where it thinks the airplane should be over this period of time based on the previous data packets. And the problem with that is that the airplane actually may have turned. And when you're an air traffic controller and you're looking at your radar screen and you're using ADS-B to determine the position of the airplane, and you see the airplane is like way off course, that kind of gets your attention. And so there are a couple agencies that have basically said, they're banning the 787 until they figure out what the problem is in the software. They're banning them from their airspace. Let's see, what does it say? The 787 software problem drove Canada's Air Traffic Control Organization, NAV Canada, last year to blacklist all 71 787s that were using the country's airspace. The blacklisting means that the 787s are not allowed to use reduced separation procedures offered to other aircraft equipped with ADS-B. So they can still use the airspace. They just don't have the advantage that all the other airplanes have using ADS-B, which is a tightened separation or reduced separation.
Now, this is not that big a deal when you talk about, I guess, oceanic type operations, because in that type of scenario, you are given either a track to fly, or you're giving a set of what's called a random route, which is basically a set of latitude and longitude positions that are going to make up your flight track. And if your ADS-B is not up to par, then basically ATC knows that you're not going to be turning off of that track, so they know where to kind of expect you. And it's interesting because on my last trip across the pond, we were having issues with logging on to the controller pilot controller pilot direct link communication, the CPDLC system, with Gander, and then on with Shanwick. We couldn't get on with them for the life of us. I don't know what was going on with that system, since we weren't able to be in contact with them through CPDLC, I asked them whether or not they were receiving our position reports through ADS, and they told us, yeah, we are, but we just don't have you on CPDLC. Basically ADS, it's a great tool. And this type of issue here with the 787, as I said, in oceanic type scenarios, it wouldn't be that much of a problem because they know where to expect you. And also, when you're flying in very close, I guess, very tight airspace, well, the relationship between, and we've talked about this, between the required navigational performance and the actual navigational performance, which basically required navigational performance is what the airspace requires the accuracy of your navigational system to be, and the actual navigational performance is what your navigational system is actually providing you or delivering at that point. And so when you're flying in very tight or very congested type airspace, that RNP and those ANP numbers are very, very tight. When you fly out in the ocean, oceanic type RNPs, you're talking about 12.5 miles, so 12.6 RNP. So you could be anywhere within that 12.6 mile box, and so that's really not that big a deal if your ADS-B is acting up in that type of airspace.
You using the half tracks across the pond, and I perhaps ought to explain that they've now, in order to increase the amount of traffic going across the pond, they have allowed tracks to go in between the current 1 degree separation. So they're getting a half degree separation.
Yep.
So
yep.
You're clear for that, because the RNAV performance for that is considerably lower. I don't know, it is about 4.
Yep, it is. But regardless, the type of actual navigational performance that we can get even en route is 0.01. So even in the en route portion of the flight, would be flying with basically 0.01 ANP, which would be no issue whatsoever.
Cool.
RNP, CPDLC, MOUSC. All right, that's what all sounds
Just a
like
few more acronyms to throw in there.
NAV Canada first detected a problem on 1 July 2014 when controllers noticed a 787 appearing to deviate up to 38 nautical miles from its planned track. The controllers alerted the crew by radio, but the pilots insisted their instruments showed that they were still on course. Suddenly, however, the 787 was observed jumping back to the flight plan route on the controller screens. Anyway, so it's a problem.
The controller screamed?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, wow.
I can hear the controller screaming from here. I actually hear that a lot when I'm flying. I'm usually screaming my call sign. What are you doing? All right. You know what? You missed this last week, Captain Nick. Our good friend and frequent contributor, Micah, our main man, sent us some audio feedback, and I said I would pull this and replay this audio feedback because some of it was specifically aimed at you, and he thought that you might be best equipped to answer.
Well, I love listening to Mike. He's got such a great radio voice.
Let's listen to him.
Hey, Captain Jeff, Miami Rick, Dr. Steph, and hopefully Captain Nick, too. This is Micah, bringing you some feedback and using that USB recording stick that I told you about, Captain Jeff, so we'll see how it turns out. I'm creating this feedback over a question that I have based on an article in The Economist the other day that Glenn tweeted. And it talks about how airlines are in it for the long haul and how long-haul flights are discombobulating and how people don't really like them. How there's, some people have some real issues getting on board a plane in one place and all of a sudden being halfway around the world when they get off. And more people apparently are looking for layovers, letting the flights take longer, but kind of getting their circadian rhythms back in place. And I don't quite get that. I know when I want to go someplace, I want to get on the plane and get off, if I can, nonstop in the other location. So I'm wondering if you found it to be a bit discombobulating, Captain Nick and Miami Rick, because you do that all the time. Also, the article talked a little bit about the old Singapore Airlines flight. It was the longest one in the world for the longest time. It was Singapore Flight 21 that went from Newark Airport, EWR, to Singapore, SIN. And they used to use an A340-500. But, with 4 engines, it wasn't very economical to do it. They're talking about bringing it back, but I don't understand necessarily why they're concerned about it only being an A340-500. When I look things up, it seems that the range of a 777-200LR is about the same, if not slightly more than the A340-500. And also, the passenger capacity of the 777-200LR is about the same. I think it holds 10 more people in general than the A340-500. So I'm wondering if it would really be a problem using a 777-200LR on that route, or maybe I'm missing something. Another question that I had is primarily, I guess, for Captain Nick, if you're there. And if you're not, then Jeff, just edit this part out. But I'm wondering what it was like to transition from, you were a stick and rudder guy in the F4 for the longest time. Then you transitioned into a big yoke when you were flying transport aircraft. And then I think you transitioned over to the side stick. And I'm wondering what that transition was like. I know you said you never want to go back, that you're really happy with the Airbus side stick control and you really like flying Airbuses. But I'm wondering what the transition was like. Anyway, thanks so much. I hope this recording turns out well. What I'm going to do is take it off as a wave from the stick and translate it and move it into an MP3, and we'll see how it goes. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch. This is Micah, your main man, in Portland, Maine. Roger it out.
A wave of your stick?
That's what she said.
All right. Thank you, Micah. So the deal between the 737, what is it called? The 777-200 and the A340-500?
That's what.
Oh, I should turn on his microphone.
That makes life a little easier. Thanks for there's a shout out otherwise. Yeah, I believe that's what he said.
So what would your answer be?
My question is, is it an ETOPS function that might prevent the 777 from doing it? Might they not have an ETOPS clearance?
No. The even back in 1995 when the 777 came out, actually the 777 was the first aircraft out there to enter service with 180 minute ETOPS certification.
Yeah, have one of my beers.
Why is that so hard to say? And even as the 777s progressed, the certification has gone up all the way to 4 or 5 hours, and so it's gotten to the point where it's really not an issue with engine serviceability or the number of backup systems you have on board. It's got more to do with the you being able to fight for example, a cargo fire at a point along your route where
that's a good question. Actually, does the 777 have cargo fire suppression?
The freighter?
Well, no, we're talking passenger aircraft.
Oh yeah, of course it does. Yeah, absolutely.
It does?
And basically the way it works is
because not all Boeings do. I know that.
Well, yeah, the 777 does. Basically, the way it works is you'll set the if there's a fire, the system will automatically fire 1 to 3 bottles, and then the a warning is displayed up in the flight deck, and then you fire the other 2 balls, and the other 2 balls are actually metered out and sporadically fire the agent into the affected area, and then the last bottle is actually fired, and it's actuated by the weight on wheel switch. So basically, the second the aircraft is on the ground, that'll actually fire that last squib and empty that entire bottle into that area. But going back to the, and I think we tried that, we took a stab at answering this question last week. Between the 777-200 long range and the 340-500, and I know that dispatcher Mike actually he went on to do a little bit of flight planning with the computers, and he looked at what the optimum route would be for a 777 versus a 340. And going back to the ETOPS thing, really ETOPS just nowadays is, basically 180 minutes covers just about everywhere. And the certification now, as I said, 180 is 3 hours. There's 4 hours and 5 hour certifications, and there's no point on earth that a 5 hour ETOPS certification does not cover.
Oh wow!
So it's really not an issue of ETOPS being
okay. So I can't answer your question, Micah. I don't know why. I swallowed a fly. Perhaps I'll die.
Gosh. Oh, let's see. Where is it?
I have very little patience for stupidity.
Regarding the fire suppression systems in the cargo compartments, I believe in the United States, all air transport category airplanes, or at least all Part 121 operations, perhaps, I'm not sure about the 135 ops, but all the Part 121 operations in the United States, I think the carriers have to have the cargo fire suppression systems installed. So regardless of whether it's a Boeing or a Airbus or whatever.
Yeah, and for us, our operation, the type of operation that I'm involved with is neither 121 or 135. I fly a 129 per operation, and we are required to have it as well. So I would imagine that 135 is required as well. I don't know. I know 91 might not.
Now, as regards yokes,
yeah, do you prefer the stick, Captain Nick?
Yes, I must admit I do. Yes. Quite honestly, my good answer to your question. When I came out of the Air Force, having just used one hand on my stick to fly, I found the transition initially to a yoke very easy, because I stepped out of the Air Force, and the next thing I flew was a Boeing 747 simulator for my ability check with Acme Red, which involved polling this simulator around a circuit on 4 and 3 engines and doing various bits and bobs with it. And it came quite naturally, quite honestly, and I found it a very comfortable and easy way to fly. Transitioning from that onto the side stick of the 340. Well, I've spoken to some Boeing guys who've been very long in the tooth, Boeing guys, and they say it takes about 2 minutes for them to get used to it. Hardest thing I found actually was getting used to flying it with my left hand. So when I transitioned to the captain's seat, that was the hardest thing, because I got so used to flying with my right hand throttles on the left, to swap around to be in the captain's seat and then undergo captain training, which is obviously quite demanding compared with the requirements of a first officer. I found a little difficult, because it took me a lot longer to have that level of finesse with my left hand. But I'm told that changing hands can be good. It can work well for you. So I think. No, seriously. I think if you're any sort of a pilot, it's a quick transition. takes you no time, and it's just a different way of doing the job, and you get used to it very easily.
Well, right, because if you're flying an aircraft that's whether it's an Airbus type platform or a Boeing type platform, if you're sitting on the right hand seat, I mean you're flying with the right hand regardless, whether it's a yoke or a side stick. If you're sitting on the left hand seat, you're flying with the left hand regardless. So, it'd be interesting. I mean, I'd want to kind of give the side stick a try. I've never flown with a side stick before. So
now, what would be harder would be the kind of flying my old man did when he flew the VC-10.
Wow.
The captain didn't have his hands on the throttles. The engineer worked the throttles from his desk, and the captain asked for power settings.
Wow.
Now that would be interesting.
That would be interesting,
yeah,
because
particularly on a gusty day.
Just imagine that. It's true. I remember doing landings where you can just, before you can even feel, or before you can even see any input, or I guess any type of rate of descent represented on your vertical speed indicator or your instrument. I mean, you feel it before it's even displayed, and you correct accordingly. So if you start to feel that tendency of the aircraft sinking, you know that it's time to give it just a little bit of power, and you know just how much power to give it. It's not something you could convey to your engineer to tell you.
Well, they had to learn to do it, I guess, but that was the way they did it.
That is, I remember one time coming into Quito, and I've talked about this so many times, but it's such a great story because it used to be that you would come in on the glide slope, on the vertical portion of the ILS, up until a certain DME or distance from the runway, and you would fly over this hill. And once you pass that hill, which I'll never forget, it was 4 DME on that ILS, to the runway. So you pass that 4 DME mark, and from that point on, you had to either manually or using the vertical speed mode of the autopilot go a dot below the glide slope. And the reason why you do that was because at the old Quito airport, the glide slope did not coincide with the PAPI lights. And so if you were on the glide all the way to minimums and you broke out at minimums on the glide slope, you would see 4 white lights, and it was impossible to make a landing. You could not land. So what we used to do is, as I said, we'd fly past this little mountain here at 4 DME on the ILS, dial about a 1,200 foot per minute descent until you were about just a dot and a quarter below the glide, in IMC, mind you. And once you were a dot and a quarter below that glide, you would dial the vertical speed back to about 700, 800 feet per minute, and basically fly that all the way to minimums. And then you would break out, and then you'd be 2 and 2, and you were able to land. Now, the problem with that was when the wind was, it had a tendency to rotate around you. And that particular day, I was flying this maneuver. It was perfectly. It was one of those days when it was visual. Great hand flying day. So I did that. Disconnected the autopilot. Started flying the thing manually. I went down a dot below the glide manually. When I was a dot below, gave it a little bit of power. Stabilized, sent a 700, 800 foot per minute descent all the way down to the runway. And maybe at about 200, 150 feet, the wind rotated. And it went from a bit of a right quarter in headwind to a tailwind. And I just felt the airplane just fall from underneath me. And I had to give it power. And it got to the point where by the time I touched down, I realized that I touched down with full power on those engines. And I touched down. And I saw that the speed brakes did not deploy because obviously I had the power all the way at the, against the firewalls there. So I brought the power back, and immediately the speed brakes deployed, and it was a very, very interesting landing. And I just cannot imagine having to tell my flight engineer that I need that much power to counteract that descent. So that'd be, I don't know, be quite interesting to convey that to your flight engineer.
Well, that was obviously a well-handled situation, Rick, because that a lot of people wouldn't have put that amount of power on, and could well have piled in short or piled in heavy. So, yeah, well done there. I have to ask the question, though. You are sure the PAPIs were lined up with the same angle of approach as the glide path at the same touchdown point?
Well, this is the deal. The reason why there was that difference between the glide slip and the PAPIs is because the actual runway where the glide slip would take you down to was a displays threshold. And the reason behind the displays threshold is because you had to clear that mountain by 1,000 feet a couple of miles back. And so if the runway, if you didn't have the displays threshold, then the clearance would be too close between you and that terrain behind you. The problem with this is that you had an airport that was sitting at 9,300 feet MSL. The first third of the runway was uphill, and then it was downhill. And the runway itself was not very long. And, 8 times out of 10, you'd go in there at max landing weight.
So you're making use of every inch of the time.
So I had to put it down right where the PAPIs were.
Needs must.
Interesting deal was that, I did that and everybody else did that, which means that there was a huge, thick deposit of rubber right next to that PAPI, which made for a very interesting landing when it would get a little rainy out there because it was like soap out there.
You still going there?
No, not anymore. That airport closed down back in 2012. But I tell you,
well done.
Some of the greatest flying I've ever done was into that airport, and I feel like that's where I earned my wings. Just great experience.
Okay, we're going to continue with some more great feedback, this time from Lyle. He says, Happy New Year, Captain Jeff, Steph, and Miami Rick, and Captain Nick. Listening to you talk about how some Acme crews will not take trips to LaGuardia and DCA made me think about a trip to KDCA in a Cessna 172 on a hot, humid day. A friend of mine at the time we're talking, and I told him how I had a pilot's license, and he inquired about how fun it would be to go for a day trip to Washington, D.C. I was excited, but a little scared at the idea at the same time. I knew the restrictions and need for a reservation was incorporated into my flight planning process. At that time, I had to make a phone call to the local ATC to make that reservation. Being a new pilot and my need to be as exact as possible, especially arriving around the morning busy time, and plan my departure at the afternoon busy time as well, by coincidence, added to my workload. Arriving and departing KDCA was for sure my most exciting trip so far because of my speedy 105-knot Cessna 172 next to DC-9s, 757s, and other aircraft. The hilarious part was on the departure because it was during the peak afternoon arrival departure period, and being probably 95 degrees, hazy, hot, and humid VFR day, the 3 H's, which is, hazy, hot, and humid, a fast bird like mine can clearly handle. Laugh out loud, he says. Obviously, he's using sarcasm. I get clearance to taxi and quickly realized I was sandwiched between those DC-9s and 75s taxiing to the other end of the airport. My passenger, his first flight in a small airplane, asked me 100 questions as I'm listening to ATC and making sure I don't make any mistakes on the radio and reviewing the standard instrument departure, as said. We get to being next for departure. I look right and see the line of jets behind me. My passenger says to me, I can't believe those bigger airplanes are waiting for us. I laughed and calmly said, big or small, we all have the same process. The sweat got worse as I had the image of the pilots in those planes making jokes like, I can't believe this guy in that 172 has the nerve to schedule a departure at this time of day. I also wanted to be as professional as they were on the mic so as to not let them think I was some green pilot. I tried to put on my best calm and collective voice as if I do this every day. Cessna, November 12345, position and hold from ATC. I maneuvered the plane to the runway center line. I center the heading indicator, look right again at the line of jets waiting for takeoff or waiting for me. And I knew at that moment, through all the planning, nervous excitement, I truly enjoyed what was going on around me. As I'm cleared for departure, we slowly accelerate and climb past the waiting jets and I hear my friend say, "Wow, I'll remember this." In my head, I said that too, not letting know how nervous I was, not to slow the process down. Finally, the departure controller said, once we contacted them, Cessna, November 12345, can you speed it up for faster traffic in your area? And after that, he broadcast to everyone on the frequency, caution, slow traffic departing the area. Hazy, hot, and humid, the throttle to the firewall, and my professional response was, we'll comply. I pushed the nose down a little and turned northeast. I was thinking, how much faster can I get this thing to go? I had the biggest grin ear to ear from that moment for about a day about the whole event. I would so do it again. Happy flying. I enjoy the show, following all of you on social media. Lyle Jama.
That is a excellent story, and it's funny because I think all of us who've come from the, I guess, civilian side of the equation to flying airliners can relate a little bit to that story you just shared with us. I remember on my commercial cross country, which was, I flew from Sanford, which is where I went to school, down to an airport called, I think it was Lavelle down in Central Florida, up through Tampa International, and then back to Orlando Sanford. And I remember being vectored around and put in the queue for, I think it was runway 36 left, or one of the north-south runways. And I remember Tower asking me to keep my speed up because of traffic behind me. And my little 172 could just not go any faster because it just does. It's not a fast plane. So I must have been doing 120 something knots down the slope. And I remember when it came time to land, it's really hard to bleed off 120 knots in a Cessna 172. And so I floated and floated and floated and floated forever down that runway. Finally touched down, and my little tiny brakes could just not handle slowing down. And so I had to roll the airplane all the way to the end of the runway. And the traffic, for which I had kept my speed up, had to go around because I was still on the runway. So
what do you think of me now?
Yeah, exactly. So at least and I'm sure the guy wasn't, I guess the guy had to go around, wasn't happy because of me, but hey, it is what it is.
But Lyle, I know just how you feel. With only a few hours after my first flying lessons, my PPL, the flying school I was working for, and my job was to refuel the airplanes. They ran out of fuel at the airport, which was very close to Heathrow. It was under the London TMA. And we were daily shuttling aircraft to Gatwick and back to refuel them at Gatwick so that we could keep them flying. And with probably 30 hours total flying experience taking a Cessna into Gatwick Airport, I was terrified. So I know just how you feel, and having done it successfully, a very exciting day.
I'm only speaking for myself, and I think a lot of commercial airline pilots out there, but when we see like a really big, busy airport like DCA or ATL or JFK, and we see a general aviation aircraft out there, we kind of we smile like, that's so cool. I can't believe that you're actually mixing it up out here with us, because we know how intimidating that can be. I think that maybe some of you think we're looking, as you just mentioned, Lyle, in your feedback, like, oh, what is this guy doing over here? He doesn't belong here. But as you said, it's a first come, first serve. Everybody's treated equally. It doesn't matter if you're in a 747 or if you're in a Cessna
who
150.
thought up that idea?
These crazy Americans, I guess. Is that the way it is in England as well?
Well, we don't see many GA aircraft at Heathrow, I'll tell you that for nothing. I think the landing fees might be a problem.
Yeah, that's one way they kind of keep the general aviation aircraft out of the big airports by charging exorbitant fees. But and then sometimes I have to admit that it does get frustrating sometimes when you go to a place like Sarasota, and because everybody has the same priority as everybody else, you have to sometimes wait for takeoff for quite a while because there's like 4, 5, 6 airplanes in the traffic pattern, and they're already up in the air. They have priority over you, and you just have to sit there and wait until there's a hole big enough to get your airplane launched.
Burning gallons upon gallons of aviation.
Yeah, I'm thinking about your schedule and the fact that these people are going to be, they have tight connections and everything else. But, it's just
that's
the way
what she said.
Yeah, that's what she said.
That's what she said.
All right. Let's go on with some audio feedback. This is from Coasley, I think is the way you pronounce his name.
Hey, Captain Jeff, Dr. Steph, and Miami Rick, and the APG community. This is Coasley with a little feedback as a former air traffic controller. I'm answering a question that was not asked. I'm just throwing in some knowledge just because I'm trying to be like Miami Rick and just dispense information. Anyways, years ago, I worked as a tower controller, and this is reference air traffic delays. At the tower where I worked, Albany Tower, we would get a delay notification from the center, New York Center, and they would say, flights going to Chicago, delayed an hour, 2 hours, whatever the volume delay was for that day. Usually in the afternoon, you would get volume delays. So when we knew that one of our flights, American or Northwest, going in that general direction, was ready to push back, we would give them the delay notice. Then we would tell them, hey, taxi to the ramp. We've got a little holding area for you. And as the aircraft made its way down the taxiway to the ramp, the clearance delivery guy, usually the newest guy in the tower, that's going through training, would call the center. And we would tell the center, hey, we've got our guy. He's at the end of the runway. He is ready to go. Can we launch him? So we would also look up. We would tune our radars in the control tower so we could see what was happening at flight levels. And we would say, hey, here's a jetway. We can shoot the gap. We can get him on board. You can probably place him between this flight and that flight. So we would try to be as helpful as possible. And more often than not, we would get a nice center controller that says, go ahead, launch him. And as soon as they would say that, we would clear that flight to get airborne as quickly as possible. Because sometimes they would say, oh, no, ground stop to Chicago, blah, 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 blah. But if our flight's airborne already, then he's airborne and he's good to go. So just to let you know, from the side of delays, at least from the tower control environment, we didn't enjoy delays. We want to get our planes out as quickly as possible. We want our taxiways clear. We want our runways clear, our ramps clear. And so as a controller, we work very hard from the tower's perspective to make sure that our flights get out on time. So just so you know, as you are sitting on the ramp, if you're waiting for delay, more than likely your tower controller is working and negotiating and cutting deals, asking for favors, doing all these things on your behalf, and then they come back on the radio and they just say, Acme 123, runway 31, winds 290 at 10, cleared for takeoff. And you get to go. So that was my feedback. Hope it helps. Talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, it does. Coasley, thanks for that great feedback. I think I recognize your voice. I've flown in and out of Albany many, many times over the last 27 years.
Well, perhaps you won't be.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, perhaps you would be quite so rude to him next time.
Yeah, really. But hey, I'll let him, do his talk thing.
Yeah, that's right. And say, hey, thanks for the delay.
No, you know what? I know in most cases that is what you're saying is I kind of sense that is the case because I know you guys are working with the master, airspace system flow control people, and everything has a place and a certain time to fit into the whole, the cog to fit into the system. And I've had situations where we've gone out, even though we had a wheels up time of, let's say, 22 after, and it was like maybe 5 after, we just go ahead and go out there and say, is there any way we're ready? Is there any way you can ask them, like, pretty please, can we fit in? And then they'll say, okay, stand by. And then, more times than not, they'll say, yeah, they're going to take you. If you can go like in the next 2 minutes, they'll let you go. And I know that it helps you get your traffic cleared out of your airport, and also helps us. So we do appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's great that we all feel we're on the same team.
Right. Again, playing against those bad, FAA flow control people. They're the opposing team. They're the mean ones. All right. Let's see. Ed sent in some feedback regarding episode 200. Let's hear what Ed had to say.
Hi, Jeff and crew. This is Ed from Massachusetts. I just wanted to congratulate you on your 200th episode and thank you for what was a really great bicentennial edition. You guys really had me laughing, and frankly, it was touching to know that Nick and Al and Pip all flew in from across the pond to join you for your 200th episode. It was really great. I also wanted to share with you a quick story that's related to one of the safety issues that you all have been emphasizing really since the beginning of the show. So this story took place about a decade ago when my two sons were, about 10 years younger. They were really little kids at the time, and one of the things we liked to do periodically was to attend air shows. I, of course, still love to attend air shows, but I just have a hard time getting on my busy son's calendar these days to get them to go along with me. Anyway, at the time, we had a neighbor who was a retired naval aviator. And in his very distinguished career as a naval aviator, he had served for a period of time as the boss, the squadron commander of the Blue Angels. So this gentleman knew that my sons and I were really eager aviation enthusiasts. And so one day he said to us, how would you all like to come with me to an air show? And we'll go see the Blue Angels perform. And before they perform, I'll introduce you to the team. And you can watch the show as a guest of the Blue Angels. Oh my, what a great opportunity. We were so thrilled. It's like telling a baseball fan, which we also are, that you can go watch a game in Fenway Park and you can sit in the Red Sox dugout and you can meet all the players. It was just great. So the appointed day came and we all drove out to the hotel where the Blue Angels flight demonstration team where they were staying. And we got to meet these guys beforehand. They were super nice, each one of them modest and open and just really welcoming to the kids. And to me, it was really fantastic. So we talked to these guys for a while, and then we were told that the plan is we would divide up into smaller groups, and we would each be paired with one of the pilots. And then these groups would get into a bunch of rental cars that the team had. And we would all drive in a convoy led by some state troopers. We would drive in a convoy from the hotel over to the airfield where the air show was going on. And once we entered the airfield, we would drive down the flight line, and each pilot would be driving, of course, and we'd all wave to the crowd. Wow, very exciting. It was great. So my sons and I were paired up with a young Marine captain, super nice guy, and we proceeded down the highway in the convoy. So we were driving and everything was going great, and I was chatting with this young pilot who was telling me all about what flying in the Blue Angels is like. Just great. But all of a sudden, for reasons I still don't understand today, one of the state troopers leading the convoy decided on the highway just to jam on his brakes. And the next thing I knew, I heard screeching in front of us, and I heard screeching behind us. And in the windshield, I just saw a huge bumper, and then a second later, what used to be road in front of me was just grass in front of me. We had completely spun out, and to the left, there were other cars in the convoy that had spun out, and to the right, still other cars that had spun out. Miraculously, no metal actually touched metal. Somehow, these pilots, with their skill, managed to avoid a crash. But, the car came to a halt, and I was kind of in shock, and I looked over to my left. I was sitting in the passenger seat, the front seat. I looked over to my left at the Marine captain, and he turned to look at me, and he had a kind of a grave face, and then he cracked a big, huge smile and showed me those chiclet white teeth. And he said to me, never fails, most dangerous part of every show, the drive to the airport. And so on that note, friends, I just want to say that you are all absolutely right, whether sitting in an airplane or sitting in the car on the way to the airport or sitting in that airport shuttle, taking you from the airport back to the hotel for all you flight crew, always, always, always buckle up that seatbelt. Thanks, friends, for a really terrific podcast. I'll be back in touch soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed. And yeah, what a great story. And you're right. We say it all the time. It is, at least statistically, the most dangerous part of our job, going to and from the airports. And remember, always buckle up.
Oh, for sure. My last Miami flight, I didn't get on the flight because halfway to the airport, I stopped for an accident ahead, and the driver behind me didn't and rear-ended me and nearly wrecked my car. And so I was on the phone to crew and going, I'm not going to be able to come to work. So, yeah, you're quite right.
And that's why they have reserve pilots, right?
Yeah, they do. And if the first officer who bailed out of my trip this morning didn't get rear-ended on a motorway, I want to know the reason why.
Explaining to do.
Yeah, I know. I've got his name.
Yeah, but you know what? Now you should be thankful for that guy because you were with us.
Well, that's true. I wouldn't be sitting here drinking this strange fruit drink.
He doesn't like our High Lie IPA.
No,
that's okay. You know, you don't have to. Everybody doesn't.
How do you spell High Lie with a J?
It's you wouldn't understand. All right, let's continue on with some more audio feedback. This one from someone you may have heard of. He's left us some feedback in the past, and in fact, I think he is the one that's responsible, isn't he, for us going to Farnborough next July.
Hello, Captain Jeff, Dr. Steph, Miami Rick, the old curmudgeon, and the APG community. Stuart here in Farnborough. Now it's Thursday the 21st January, and I'm out on one of my regular walks. In fact, I've been doing this walk for quite a few months in particular. And for anyone who's interested, where I'm standing right now is a road called Fowler Avenue in Farnborough. And I'm only a few hundred feet from the threshold of runway 24 left. And I've noticed something today, and it's the first time I've noticed it since the last air show, and it's quite exciting. And it's that the contractors are now on site, and they appear to be well underway, erecting the one of the four main exhibit halls, which are absolutely colossal in size. And that's what she said moment coming up, I'm guessing. I'll pause. I think I paused long enough for you to fit that jingle in. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you guys know, because it's obviously quite an exciting development. It's only a few months away now. Looking forward to meeting you all in waiting. And it's that the contractors are now on site, and they appear to be well underway, erecting the one of the four main exhibit halls, which are absolutely colossal in size. And that's what she said moment coming up, I'm guessing. I'll pause.
That's what she said.
I think I paused long enough for you to fit that jingle in. But yeah, I just thought I'd let you guys know, because it's obviously quite an exciting development. It's only a few months away now. Looking forward to meeting you all in person. Can't quite believe that's going to happen, because you are, to an extent, a little bit like celebrities in my life. You know, you very much exist, but never actually got to meet you in person, but that's all going to change. You can probably hear the little man in the background. He's out for a walk with me. And looking forward to meeting all the other APGers who hopefully can make it to Farnborough. Just to let you know that my annual leave is all booked and confirmed. So if you and the other APG guys need a lift from Heathrow, please do not hesitate to ask. That will be more than fine. Take care, and cheers for now.
Thanks, Stuart. We're so looking forward to meeting you in person at Farnborough this July.
Yeah, we keep saying next, like it's next year. It's a couple of months now, right?
Yeah, it's coming up pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yep, that is.
That's what she said.
Oh, it's just not loud enough. Here we go.
That's what she said.
All right, there we go. Okay, more audio feedback from another bloke over there in jolly old England.
Jelly old England. We're quivering at the thought of you coming over, obviously.
I'm sorry. My apologies.
Hello, Captain Jeff and the Airline Pilot Guy crew. This is Sean McCartney, the Catholic controller from the UK. Just putting my controllery foot into the lion's den about RAF Scampton and the Red Arrows. You can rest assured that the Red Arrows and RAF Scampton do not allow people to wander up and down their runway while they're displaying. Scampton is the home of the RAF, where they do all of their practicing. It started off as a small airbase pre-World War II, just off the A15 main trunk road north out of Lincoln. As the war came along and they wanted to put bigger bombers in, the runways got longer and the road was diverted in a bow shape around the airfield. And funnily enough, in the station crest, there is a bow and arrow. But what that means is the public road is very close to the airfield, and there's only a small field between the road and the airfield boundary fence. And the airfield boundary fence is a matter of tens of yards away from the runway threshold or the runway undershoot, the start of the runway. Which means the spotters tend to go right up to the runway or the airfield boundary to watch the aeroplanes as they take off and land. The problem is they also bring the step ladders, which means that they go right up to the fence, then climb on top of their step ladders, right under short final or on the climb out. Hence the problem with the danger more to the public than to the Red Arrows themselves. Interestingly enough, I used to be at Waddington, just a few miles down the road from there, which used to have an air show, and also the ACMI, Air Combat Manoeuvring Instrumentation in the North Sea, where hundreds of NATO jets every year came to practice. And one day, at the viewing area, which was the end of the runway at RAF Waddington, which also had a main road running along it, somebody decided to bring their stepladder and look over the fence at these foreign aircraft, F-16s, F-15s landing and taking off. Luckily, that person took their stepladder down just moments before an F-16 came in low and put two wheels through the fence. And it was on final approach. So he was lucky. So the problem isn't necessarily that they're up and down the runway. It's just that they're able to get too close to final approach whilst being outside the airfield boundary for their own safety. And unfortunately, the MOD police don't have authority outside of the boundary. So there we are. Hope that puts things straight. And I look forward, hopefully, to meeting up with you guys when you come over to sunny Farnborough in the summer. Take care. God bless and bye-bye.
Thank you for clarifying that, Sean. By the way, Sean, as you can tell from his wonderful voice, is a great podcaster. He has this podcast called Just a Catholic Dad. Very entertaining. You don't have to be Catholic to listen to it because he's very entertaining, and we love him. And can't wait to meet you in person, Sean. Definitely when we come out in July.
What Sean said reminds me actually of when we were, when I was flying Hawks out of RAF Valley, where one of the railways went right into the undershoot, or the main railway between London and Holyhead, which then led on to the ferry that went to Ireland. Right in the undershoot of one of the runways. And when we had a crosswind and we were using that runway, the air traffic controllers had a stop signal for the trains. So when you're on finals, they had to bring the express to halt.
Wow.
So you could do a touch and go so you didn't hit the train.
That reminds me, remember many, many episodes ago where that guy was like, wasn't he soloing for the first time or something like that in a 172? And there's like an SUV kind of coming in. Yeah, black SUV coming into view. And he actually hits the top of the SUV and the airplane just, I don't know, I remember exactly what happened, but it was quite a traumatic experience.
Yeah, I think the person with the camera is looking at pointing at the plane coming in, and just as the plane goes over, I guess, the service road that is just short of the runway, this black SUV comes into view, and just as they both meet, the camera kind of pans down, I guess, to see cover or something, but you don't actually see the plane, tumbling or anything. But it was quite an interesting video.
Yeah, and after that, he said, "That's it. I'm not flying again." But I think that somebody convinced him to continue to fly again. He was thinking, "This is what flying's about. I don't want to do it. I don't have anything to do with this."
Yeah, I remember being delayed going into Boston because there was an ocean liner sailing past the end of one of the runways.
We do have the tall ships procedure.
Yeah.
Going into and out of Boston. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember going. excuse me. Sorry, say that again.
Yeah, you know what? The ships have been around a lot longer than the airplane.
Sailed before steam.
That's right.
I'm sailing.
All right. Ruben writes, I was just listening to episode 202, which was our last one, and heard you mention the story involving Dr. Richard Carl. Dr. Carl is truly an amazing surgeon and pilot and will always be a dear friend of my family. He performed surgery on my grandmother many years ago and was able to buy her another 2 years of life. But what is even more amazing is how they met. The article I'm attaching to the story he wrote in Flying Magazine in February 2002. Okay, we're going to put that in the show notes so you can read it yourself. The entire scenario of how they came to meet is a story of encouragement and inspiration. It's incredible how two completely different people can be brought together in order to fulfill a purpose. In my opinion, it is nothing short of a miraculous work of God. I hope the story inspires you as it does me. Keep up the great work, guys. Sincerely, Ruben Duncan. And I'm not going to read the story on the show because I think that you all need to find this link, click on it, and read it yourself. Thank you, Ruben. Very touching. Thank you. And then, do we have to play this one?
Definitely not.
Well, we're going to do it anyway.
Captain Jeff, Miami Rick, the lovely Dr. Steph, and APG listeners all around the world. It's the old curmudgeon here. Did you know that the Brits were intimately involved with the Apollo 11 mission that landed the first men on the moon? So my question to you is, after that history-making moon landing, what was the first drink to pass the lips of the astronauts once they came out of quarantine? A very quiet gentleman passed away a few weeks ago. His name was Joe Gilmore. The list of the rich and famous that he knew was impressive, but very few of us would ever have heard of him. A softly spoken Ulsterman and devout Catholic, he met almost every U.S. president from 1940 onwards. He was on first-name terms with President Charles de Gaulle and royalty, particularly Princess Margaret, the Queen's late sister. Frank Sinatra called him by his first name, and Errol Flynn, Ernest Hemingway, Laurel and Hardy regularly visited him. During the Second World War, Winston Churchill asked him to look after a special bottle of whiskey, and Joe was prevented from joining up as his skills were considered essential for keeping up morale on the home front. His special talents also oiled the wheels of industry and commerce, the newspapers, and he helped the United Kingdom to join the European community. So quiet and discreet was he that he was flown around the world to ply his special form of magic. So what did those astronauts drink once they were let out of quarantine? It had been specially shipped across an ocean for them, for which Neil Armstrong wrote a letter of thanks, and it consisted of 1 measure of grapefruit juice, 1 measure of Grand Marnier, 2 dashes of rose water, shaken well and drained into a wine glass, which was then filled with champagne. It was, of course, the Moonwalker, and Joe Gilmore was the mixologist and head barman of the Savoy Hotel in London who created it, and nearly 200 other wonderful cocktails that he served to the rich and famous.
Well, thank you, you old curmudgeon, you, for sending that in. I never heard of Joe Gillespie. I mean, Joe Gilmore.
We've just been making jokes because I couldn't remember his surname. But I shall tell the old curmudgeon that, yes,
yeah,
and how much you appreciated that.
Okay, please do. Yeah, I love those kind of stories, and that's really cool. The connection between this guy at the Savoy American Bar and the Apollo 11, it's just really, really cool.
And the connection goes further because Joe Gilmore was taught by an American whose name escapes me at the moment, but who came across to the Savoy during the Prohibition. And he brought his cocktail making talents to the Savoy and was head barman there and taught Joe everything he knew. And Joe was a very poor lad, grew up in quite dire circumstances, and of course progressed to meeting some of the most famous people in the world.
Yeah, well, that's a very famous hotel, isn't it? I mean,
the Savoy, most certainly, yes.
Yeah.
And a delightful place.
Is that where you're putting us up when we come out to London?
Well, I might take you and show you the front of it if you like.
Okay.
I might show you a postcard of it.
Yeah, well, that's even
we could
better.
probably do that like right now with
That's
Google,
even
right?
cheaper. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We have some more time here to continue with some feedback. Let's see. This was sent by Don Sebastian, the pre-buy guy. And let's see. It's a YouTube video regarding a PC sim. What do you call these things? They're like special add-ons or whatever that you can use with all the popular simming platforms. And this one happens to be one of the MD88 of all things. Okay, let's hear from Captain Nick and his derogatory comment about the airplane.
No. I was just saying how nice it was to see a museum piece actually fly.
So they're looking at this new sim package from Rotate. Oh no, I'm not using the right terminology, but from Rotate Sim.
Come on
Let me
now.
turn down the volume. And they're kind of doing it's like an unboxing of the software, and I believe this was a pre-release version. But it's amazing when you look at this. We're watching the YouTube video right now of the imagery, the graphics that they're using in this simulator package and programming, and how realistic these things really look.
It is. You can see the strokes from the brushes to put the dope on the canvas that they used to cover this airplane. It's actually remarkable.
Knew that was coming. Look at that old piece of crud.
Oh, were you talking about the captain now? Yeah, I think you can see him through the window there.
Anyway, I'll put a link to this in the show notes. And if you're interested at all in looking at the Rotate Sim MD80 series, it's interesting. It's a great video because the guy that did this actually had a guy that is qualified in the MD80, and he kind of critiqued the various engine systems and other avionics systems in the airplane, what was accurate and what was not. And I enjoyed it. It was entertaining.
I thought it was great. And I'm being rude, Jeff, because I have flown museum pieces myself, and I think it's really nice to fly those classic airplanes. So.
Yeah, and as far as the simulator, I guess, aspect of the whole thing, I don't know. I mean, one thing is to model the instruments and all the buttons working and all the lights lighting up and this and that. But the other thing is to kind of really nail down the flight model of the sim. Whether it actually flies like the real thing. And I have a good friend of mine who's he's a sim pilot. He has the 777 freighter add-on for Flight Simulator 10, I believe it is. And he asked me one time, well, how close is this thing to the real thing? And well, just like all these simulators, you go on and then you do the pre-flight, and every function of the FMC, the flight management computer, works. Every button up on the overhead panel works. Everything on the flight deck works. The colors on the panels and everything's just spot on. But there's one test that I do to see whether the flight model is correct or not, and that is on a 777. At max landing weight, you intercept the glide slope with flap 5 and watch what happens, and then flap 15 and watch what happens. If you intercept the glide slope with flap 5 on a 777 fully loaded, the airplane will not slow down. It'll maintain 800 feet per minute descent right down the slope, but it'll actually, the speed will creep up on you. And that's why I always, even at idle, yep. That's why on the 777, you have to, at least this is my method, I always intercept the glide slope with flap 15, because with flap 15, the wing is dirty enough to keep you from letting that speed creep up, and it's not a large enough flap setting that the engines need to put any power in. And also, flap 15 does not limit you from using speed brake as flap 20 does. And the reference speed for flap 15 is the exact same one as it is for flap 20. So that's kind of my test. If the speed stays stable and the engines stay at idle with flap 15 on the glide slope, then they've modeled it right.
Have you seen models that actually do it right?
Yeah, the one I'm talking about. They nailed it pretty spot on.
So, I have a question. So these PC simming packages and programs, when you're flying the airplane, are you doing like keystrokes, or are you doing like actual yoke, like
I guess it depends. But the setup that this friend of mine has, he's put, it's a considerable investment. It's a lot of peripherals and and a yoke and throttle quadrants and the modular mode control panel for the autopilot. Plus the screens that go where each panel goes, and then he's got a projector that actually projects the surroundings. So he's got an entire room set up for this thing. You're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars and several computers.
I've got a friend, the same Matt Monroe, who has triple screens. He uses his keyboard and mouse to just activate switches, but he's got a pair of rudder pedals, stick.
Isn't that the way you do it in the Airbus? Like you have this, you just like hit like key combinations, like shortcut, like Command T for takeoff and Control L for landing,
and Control Z when you've made a mistake, so you can go back and do it again. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, I thought so. Well, maybe I should transition to the Airbus world.
Well, you'd be using that Control Z a lot.
Wow, touche. Like your little graphic earlier.
Yeah.
Touche. Or as I like to say, tooch. All right. Greetings, Captain Jeff. I'm a brand new listener. I'm sorry. But really, welcome, Jim, to the show. He's working his way up the catalog by binge watching last year's worth of your wonderful podcasts. I started with APG 149, and why didn't you start with 1?
Yeah, that syndrome is catching, but you haven't got it quite so bad as some.
No, he's currently up to 167 as of the 5th of January, and where we're going green. Did somebody say?
We're going green. We're going green. We're gonna take care of the earth. We're going green.
Any excuse to play that.
There you go.
The main purpose of this email is to confirm that I would be interested in any and all of your Acme Airlines merchandise when they again become available. Yeah, we're still looking into that. That's kind of put on hold, on pause. We would love to find a way to make the beer pint glasses and coffee mugs, and along with the T-shirts and other things.
Oh yeah, I need another T-shirt. My red Acme T-shirt's in St. Lucia.
Oh really?
Which is not a lot of use to me.
We really don't want to hear exactly the details and all that.
No, you might not want to, but I'm going to get it back again.
She's not going to give it back, huh?
Well, it's the only thing she has to wear.
Oh, you're terrible. Okay, well, we're working on it. So, we'll let you know when that becomes available. Thank you for asking about it. Please use his email address to keep in touch with me on this matter. Okay. He also contributed to the coffee fund. Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. And he says, I do have a couple of feedback items. I realized that we are of the same U.S. Air Force heritage when I heard you say flexibility is the key to air power. which of course reminds all of us of General Tony McPeak. I have a story about him that I'd better share with you in person, maybe one day over an adult beverage. Let's see. He was saying that by my email address, you might see that I'm an amateur radio operator.
Oh, brilliant.
A ham. Are you?
Yeah, I am too.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's your call?
M1CQU, Mike 1, Charlie, Quebec uniform.
Now, he's a real ham operator, because if you ask somebody what their number, what do you call it? Your call sign?
It's a call sign.
Call sign is, and they come up with it immediately without hesitating, you know that they're for real. I'm not a ham. Are you a ham?
No, I'm not.
I'm a ham. If you ask my wife.
I like ham.
I do like ham, and
we call them radio amateurs in the UK.
I am a ham as well, because I love hamming it up, but I'm not a ham operator, radio operator.
Now, a quick question: ham. It's HAM. Is that short for something, or is it?
Well, that's the American term. So you'd have to ask an American. There is another one. I'm just trying to think. Who?
Lou. No.
Lou? No, it'll come to me in a second. Who is also? He's another pilot. I can't remember his call sign, but it might be short for something. HF amateur, HAM. No, I don't know. But in the UK, we don't use that term. We're called radio amateurs. And if I have a radio amateur license, you have to earn the license by taking examinations and et cetera, et cetera.
High altitude monkey, I think, is what it stands for. So
well, that's obviously applies to the American ones. I'm sorry about that, guys.
We use he's talking about Q codes are alive and well in the ham radio community.
Oh, most certainly, yeah.
We use these communication shortcuts every time we operate. Here's a Wikipedia reference that mentions aeronautical, marine, and ham radio usages of the Q codes, and we'll put that link in the show notes. You are certainly to be congratulated for creating such a strong community of flying aficionados.
Yeah.
It's a rare thing today when such an online group can exist with no spam, disrespect, or idiocy. I like that word if it isn't. He's saying, is that a word?
Idiocy, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to inform you, old chap, but idiocy arrived a few weeks ago.
What, when you came here?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Your podcast and its feedbacks provide an interesting and useful exchange of expertise in a respectful manner, a rare combination that keeps me coming back for more. Keep up the good work. Cheers and happy and safe flying. Jim, Whiskey 2 November Sierra Foxtrot, ham radio operator and sometime airline passenger.
I like your call sign, Jim. I'll make a note of that. If you notice mine, although it's a Mike 1 and not a G, which is the common UK one, CQU, does that ring a bell? I had to wait a while to get CQU, and these guys are looking at me very confused. But when you're transmitting over a frequency and just looking for someone to chat to, you say CQ, 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 and it's the code for I want to make contact with someone.
Is it like seek you?
I don't know. No, he's the guy to ask. Let's ask him. Can he send us some feedback, please, with the origins of the term CQ? I would love to be reminded because I'm not sure. And obviously, CQU is mean for Michael, so means I'm looking for someone to chat to.
At least, maybe more. So thank you very much, Jim, for and while you're at it, when you're looking up the CQ code and what that means, look up Lou as well. Thank you. Okay. Carl Houghton sent in Houghton some inspirational feedback. Oh, you know what? This was okay. He sent a couple pieces of feedback. One was that inspirational feedback regarding the we talked about on the last episode, the guy that was 67 years old, a man for a season. We just talked about it again tonight, Dr. Carl. And the other thing he sent was a link, and I think we've talked about this as well. It's very funny. Have you guys? I'm sure you've seen this YouTube video of a guy took the Lego Living the Dream, and he's got two parts of Living the Dream. We've talked about it before on the.
Yeah, I hope this guy puts out some more because that is so funny.
I hear this all the time on the radio too, like on guard. People go,
yeah.
Work.
Well, yeah, you're on guard. Yeah, I know. I'm supposed to be on guard. Hey, get off guard. Oh, God.
Living the dream.
and other crap that annoys pilots.
Excuse me, Mr. Pilot, can you help me, please? Why, yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to help. Can you tell me how to get the baggage claim? Yeah, you just go down the hall and make a right.
And then behind him is a sign that says baggage claim with arrows. You have to watch the video.
Beep, 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 beep. Excuse the cart.
Yeah, those electric carts, they're crazy.
Oh, yeah, I nearly got run over in Miami today. I'm not kidding. If I'd been one step to the left when this guy came around the corner, he'd take me out.
So what is the deal with these electric carts? I mean, so people are riding the carts not to get to where they're going faster, but because they don't have the capability of getting there on their own power, right?
Yeah, that's what I assume, yes.
Well,
I've used it a few times.
Why do they feel like they have to? Oh, you have?
Yes. In Dubai, I always try and nab a cart. You flash your stripes and say, "It's a long walk, chaps."
Oh, that's really sad. I'm not there yet. Getting close, though.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So why do they need to go so fast? Good question.
I know. It's like they're like beeping, move out of the way, move out of the way. Well, just do the same pace that we're doing walking.
Yep.
What's the deal? I don't get it. Do you have any commentary about that?
I was going to say, I mean, if you're going to go that slow, then just get off the cart and walk.
Good advice, Rick. Thank you. Bhavesh, have you ever heard of this guy? In Kenya. Let's see. Let me make this bigger so I can read it. Shoot. Okay. More editing. Good day, Captain Jeff. Some voice feedback that you can have more sips of your ale. Good. He knows me so well. FMC alternate page, alternate HKMO selected with direct as the. What is this? I don't know. This is is this a different language?
I'm going to turn off for a minute. This is Airbus.
What is this?
So
you know what? I think what we need to do is play this feedback, this audio feedback that he sent us. Maybe all this gobbledygook that he's writing to us right here will make some sense. So here we go. Take it away, Bhavesh.
Good day, Captain Jeff. I'm Rick, Dr. Steph. Hope you guys are doing well. This is Bhavesh from Kenya. I've been meaning to do a feedback for a while, but the problem is I listen to the podcast while driving most of the time and unable to make notes on what I can talk about. Someone's been asking about the 737. Fortunately, today I was stuck in traffic and managed to take some notes while listening to the 99.5. I meant to do this podcast earlier today on my way to work, or at work rather. Got there early, but it turns out the planes come out of the hangar, and that's not a good sight. So anyway, we had too much fuel for where we were going. We needed 13 tons. We had 16. We were landing weight limited, and therefore had to defuel, and that just took a lot of time. Back home now. Feedback for, I forget the lad's name. He was asking about a bunch of questions about the 737. I'll attach a couple of pictures with this podcast, and he can refer to those pictures to know what I'm just to make sense of what I'm saying. First of all, the first question I think he had was about the green dash lines. Rick explained that, but sorry, mate, Rick. The 737 is slightly different from the way triple works. So Rick said those lines were from fixed page, radials from the on the fixed page. Well, that's correct. But what happens is on the 737, when you have a VOR frequency tuned up, and whatever bearing you've set on the MCP, that shows up as dashed green lines on your map. So I've attached two pictures showing lines from November Victor, that's a VR Nairobi, and then there's another one for Kilo Victor. That's Kilimanjaro. And basically, so whatever VR frequency set, the bearing of that is shown on the map. The second question was about deceleration. Yeah, Rick, you got that was spot on, mate. The green circle with decel written next to it. I've got a picture attached of the FMC. There's a waypoint called Ibrat. I have a speed limit of 210 at 9,000. It's 9,100. Yeah, 210, 9,100. So just before that, there is a deceleration. Basically, the plane's going to slow it down from 250 to 210. And that green circle, open circle with deceleration is the beginning of the deceleration to get to Ibrat by 210. Then there was, you guys briefly talked about VNAV. So Rick, spot on there. VTAC on the side shows the VNAV vertical profile, how you're doing, whether high or low on the profile. What I find, Captain Jeff referred to this a bit, is that we have lots of young guys in our fleet, and they tend to rely a lot on VNAV. They don't do the 3x10 a lot rule to see their height versus distance. See, when we started flying, I started flying on the 737-300. The VNAV on that's not great, so we had to do the mats. However, on the NG now, so we got the 737-700 and the 800. VNAV's much better. So, yeah, I mean, the mental mats could easily go out the window and you'd get away with it. But on the classic, the old 300s, that bite you. It brought you in quite high. So you'd say you're in profile, but you'd end up being 1,200 feet high. So you had to keep doing your mats. And then had a question about alternate. So my 7.3 differs slightly from Rick's 777. So I'm going to have a couple of pictures of the FMC. Basically, we get an option, 5 options of what alternate airport we have. We can select 5 different alternate airports. And then it gives you an option of going there direct or via missed approach. And then it gives you, depending on what you select, a direct or missed approach. It gives you information like distance to go and the fuel you land there with. Now, the difference is it's just a reference it's a reference page. You cannot activate execute it like you can on the triple. So you just have to go back to, once you decide to divert somewhere, you can refer to this page, but then you'll have to go back to route page 1, change your destination, and then on page 2 you can upload the routing and upload the routing on route page 2. And then I think sometime back someone had asked about the selecting an approach on the 737. So it's our plane obviously is older than the 777. So you could do the old-fashioned way where you tune the ILS frequency on the VHF panel, and then once you've done that, you tune the bearings on the MCP. Not tune. Set the course on the MCP, and that's basically like your old-fashioned ILS setup. Yeah, you tune your frequency, you get the bearing, you'll get the localizer and glass slope indication. And you could just shoot the ILS approach like that. But obviously, it's much, much safer when you have the route, the ILS approach programmed in the FMC. That way, it's going to give you a lot more information, height checks, that sort of stuff. And on our 737, we have the VSD display. So if you plug in the correct information in the FMC, the VNAV display will show you vertical profile, and that's going to help you with energy management, situation awareness, height checks, and that sort of stuff. So basically, you can tell how you're doing on vertical profile in reference to the VSD profile. I think that should cover it all. I think as far as feedback for the 737 goes. If there's anything else, guys, please just ask Captain Jeff, and I'll give you more feedback on the 737. It's a lovely plane. I know Rick's going to find it a bit slow, but it goes into runways Rick's 777 can go. Something to brag about, I guess. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Awesome podcast as always. All the best for the new year. Cheers.
Hey, Bhavesh, thank you so much for that feedback, man. The 737 is a beautiful plane. And I tell you what, if I had a choice to fly a 737, I would choose a 737-200. I feel like, a lot of the older pilots that are flying the 777 with me now actually came on to airline flying with the 737, and they say that the 200. One of the things, one of the things they always say is that if you see it out the window and if it fits in your windshield, you can basically put it down on that piece of tarmac down there. So yeah, so basically you can stop it right there. Amazingly maneuverable. That wing, the clamshell system, the reversers on those JT 8s, just amazing airplane. As far as your feedback is concerned, yes, you're correct. Those lines that come off of the stations once you select them, once you tune them, that's true. Those are the radials, and actually I'd forgotten to mention that, because in my type of operation, we really do not use VORs on 777s. I do remember on the 767, back when I used to fly that, I used to use VORs in that airplane a lot more, and you'd actually have to go up to the mode control panel. Well, not actually the mode control panel, but up in the glare shield, and then the captain would have his on the left-hand side of the MCP. The FO would have his on the right-hand side of the MCP, and you would set the frequency there, and then you would set the course, and then you would look down at your navigation display, and as you turned the omni-bearing selector or the course selector up right next to where you tune the VOR, you would see that green line kind of swing around the station there, letting you know what the bearing from and bearing to the stations are. So very interesting system. As far as the alternate page there, we have the same. Basically, you can select one of those alternates. And I see from the pictures that you sent that your FMC system on your 737 is a legacy type, because you have 3 keys for the VNAV functions, one for climb, one for cruise, one for descent. And the system that we use is the Pegasus system that basically has 1 key, 1 button. It says VNAV, and depending on the portion of the flight, it will display either the climb, the cruise, or the descent portion. And you can actually toggle through each page, either with page up or page down, or previous or next, if you want to see the climb, cruise, or descent portion of the VNAV function of the FMC. And then the VNAV descent, I love that, I guess, vertical view of your that one there. I love that screen there, because you can actually visualize what your descent looks like. But you know what, I don't use that page too much. Basically what I use is as I said, I'll seldom use that vertical view there. What I'll basically use is the green arc, your altitude prediction arc. I will put that arc right where my next waypoint is, and basically manage the energy of the airplane by either speeding up or slowing down with the mode control panel and the flight level change mode if I am flying radar vectors. And since flight level change is a mode that manages speed with the throttles at idle, by me just basically either increasing my airspeed or decreasing my airspeed, I will manage the energy that way. And with me increasing or decreasing the airspeed, that'll make my altitude range arc either get closer to me, saying that I'm going to get to my altitude closer to my current location or get further away from me, saying that I'll get to my altitude further away from my location. So I kind of manage energy that way, and obviously always trying to keep the speed brake stowed. So yeah, that's what I got on that. It's it's a funny thing because if you fly one Boeing, you basically can fly them all because the systems are so similar across different platforms. So great stuff. Thank you so much for that feedback. And if we have any more 737 stuff, hey man, you are our 737 guy.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of Flight 203, and we're going to close it out with this from Vernon. And he says, congratulations on number 200. I'm an old timer and have been with you since before episode 50, I think. I haven't been very good about keeping in touch because I retired at the end of May from my non-flying job, which enabled me to listen to APG while driving around Northeast Colorado. Since then, I've fallen behind on the ever longer podcasts. Sorry. One of my retirement goals has been to sort my home office and old aviation photographs. Attached are 8 photos I've wanted to send for a long time. On its last day of operation at Denver's old Stapleton International Airport, which I've flown in and out of several times, great place, on February 25th, 1995, my in-laws went out to watch the airplanes land. They happened to take the sequence of a United 727 on its landing approach. The sun was low in the west, lighting the bottom of the wing, making it easy to study the amazing wing system from below. I hope you and APG listeners enjoyed this sequence of photos. Of course, I'll include those in the show notes. Retirement has been as busy as ever. It's just that I'm busy doing what's on my list and not someone else's, except, he says, my wife accepted. I've married off my daughter in July. My new son-in-law and I can talk flying because he works for one of your favorite agencies. He's a supervisor for the TSA and is a flight medic in the Air Force Reserves. We also have a son who will be married next April in Hawaii. Guess we'll be going there too. Well, I better get back to listening to APG. I just got through the infamous flatulence episode, and I can't wait. I think they're all flatulence episodes. And I can't wait to hear how your crew ganged up on you for number 200. Keep up the great work. Former air traffic controller and retired certified flight instructor Vernon in Fort Morgan, Colorado. And then he has a series of photographs taken of a United 727 approaching Stapleton. And they're just beautiful photos. And I love the 727. It's one of my favorite airplanes. And the wing, Captain Nick goes, what is all that crap hanging on that?
Well, yeah, he's everything but the kitchen sink. Actually, I can see a garden shed and the kitchen sink hanging. I tell you what amazes me is the angle of the slats. They so sharply angled down. And those vast barn door, they single-slotted Fowlers that have come out there.
They're triple-slotted Fowlers.
Triple, so I can't see the number of slots from here.
Yeah.
But they're vast flaps, aren't they? They're huge.
And if you notice, the inboard portion of the wing on the leading edge, those are Kruger flaps.
Oh, really?
On the outboard portion, you have slats coming down. Then you have a wing fence dividing them. So
you got so many darn things on that wing. You got the Kruger flaps, you got the slats, you have the triple slotted Fowler flaps.
I think that that guy probably cost me so much time learning to be a QFI in the Air Force because I obviously had to learn every type of flap system that existed in the world, and half of them were done just for this bloody airplane.
Just imagine, look, you have inboard ailerons, outboard ailerons. You have and you have control tabs for the for those control surfaces. So it's just so much going on in that wing.
And I think right now these pictures, I think they were doing a 40 flap landing because the normal landing was 30 degrees, and I think that they were using 40 in this picture. I mean, it seems to me, it looks like they got everything hanging out on this thing.
Well, it's an impressive amount of steel work, aluminium, whatever.
Aluminium. I love that.
Hanging off that airplane.
Yeah, there is. It's a
And look at those dinky little engines. Jeez.
That's why they had to have 3 of them.
They're tiny.
I know. They're JT8Ds,
All right,
just like the ones that are on my 88.
Explain this to me, you Boeing guys. Why was the 727 called the 727 when it had 3 engines, and the 737 called that when it had 2 engines?
Well, it's basically the Boeing serials, I guess, commercial serial number designation began with the 707, which actually was the dash 8. So that was the not the dash 80. So 707. Then I guess
had no engines.
Well, it had 4. Then the 717, which was the old 717, which became the KC-135, the tanker version.
Oh yeah.
Then the 727, the 37, 47, 50. So yeah, it's kind of
so like the A320 has 2 engines, so the A330 has 3 engines.
Yeah. Yeah, we do 2 engines and APU.
Okay, there you go.
There you go. Next question.
Never mind. Okay. Well, it is time now to shut this thing down.
They shut me down for sure.
I know. These 2 poor guys are really, really tired, and it's time to send them off on their way back to Miami and get this man in bed, get some sleep. So, and I need some sleep as well. So, anyway, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for driving all the way up, and I'm sorry you have to drive all the way back down. But while I'm sleeping, I'll be dreaming about you guys driving. No, I won't. Even think about it.
No, I dream about that air hostess. I sent a picture.
I know you probably will be.
Yeah, that'd be much nicer.
Yeah, he sent a picture of. He says, "Why am I spending time with you guys when I could be spending time with my crew? Having drinks and relaxing in Miami." I thought, well, yeah, I don't know.
came across with a gorgeous crew, absolutely gorgeous. So it broke my heart to be picked up and dragged up here.
That shows you his dedication to the APG community. I mean, it's just amazing.
There you go. I love your guys. I love the feedback tonight. Really, really good feedback. Some great questions.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting evening. It hasn't been long. The time's flown by. It's been great fun.
Yeah, it always does. It always does. So if you want to send feedback, send it to feedback@airlinepilotguy.com. We got this great site that Arash takes care of and manages, and it's just a beautiful site. Thank you, Arash, for doing that. And remember, if you're an Android user, to download the Airline Pilot Guy app that our app guy, Paul Whittle, created. Hopefully, we'll be able to let you know that the iOS version is available as well, and a lot of features that are going to be implemented over time. And we're looking forward to that. What else? Coffee Fund. Yeah, you can find out about that by heading over to airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. And anything else before we shut it down? No? All right. So thanks for being there for us. We without you, as Rick always says, this wouldn't be anything. It's all about the community. It's all about you listening to the show and contributing and just being there for us, because we're here for you. So with that, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Yeah, good night, Jeff.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see all of you next week. Love you so much. Woohoo!
Hey, well,
is anybody still in the chat room? Let's go over here.
Jeez, guys, wish we'd been able to sit and watch your comments. We need to buy Jeff another computer.
What, like a bigger one?
One we can have more than one program showing at once.
That's like a 15-inch screen. I mean, that's about as big as a
That's
laptop
what
as
she
you want.
said.
So
yeah, we
you're
all
like,
know you're exaggerating. You're like a fisherman.
If I had known that we were going to be doing this, I would have brought the webcam and then set it up.
The big guns out.
Yeah, I would have put it over there on the sliding glass window,
that would have great.
and then would have so it has a little bit wider angle.
No one expected Rick to do the unexpected.
No, I really didn't have any. I had no idea that you guys were going to be driving up. Well, of course, we didn't know that you were going to be here at all.
No.
And so yeah. Let's see who else. Who all is in there? 19 people. We have.
I'm just intrigued to see if anyone from the UK has hung on this long.
Is Joshua in the UK? Okay. Hey, how do you pronounce your name? Milame? No. Oh, Mila. Mila Improves. Hey, Mila. Enjoyed your video and following you on Twitter. Very
Miami
interesting.
or
Mela.
Lucia. Interesting
Mela.
point. Miami is great, Welsh. Or it's James, I should say. Miami is great because Jeff and Rick are here, but quite honestly, oh, damn it. See, good coffee here, good food here. St. Lucia's got nice beaches. Nice. The beaches here are a bit boring. They're just like, long
Have you been
straight.
to any of the beaches here?
Yeah, we used to have a hotel right on the beach.
Oh, on South Beach
Yeah,
or whatever?
in that area where all the Art Deco hotels.
Okay.
A gorgeous place, but the beach is real boring.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not like sandy coves and things like that. They're just kind of long strips of sand. So, it depends whether you like America or like doing things at half the pace of everybody else in the world.
Let's see. I think Alex, Green Alex.
Oh, yeah.
I think he is in the UK.
I think definitely.
Yeah, he's been here the whole darn time.
God damn it.
Thank
You're
you.
mad. Were you up at 6 this morning there?
So,
Probably.
Mela, so how is it that you spell your name Mila, but you pronounce it Mela?
Mela Improves.
I know, but it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, perhaps he's trying to get better.
Oh, look, here's some footage that James Tolf put in here of Captain Nick flying an airplane.
Oh, look. That's the 777. That second one's the 777. Look, there he goes. And that's typical.
It's bobbing all over the place.
Bobbing along. Wow. Bobbing along.
That's Dutch. Well, so I still don't
Perhaps
understand.
it's Dutch roll. Is Dutch roll, do you think? I don't know.
No, her name.
Oh, Dutch.
Mela.
Okay.
But it's M-I. It's not M-A. I don't get it.
Yeah,
Mila.
it's Mila, right?
To you, you're Mila to us.
Mila.
Yeah.
Mila in America, Mela in
And Airbus would
the
never do
Netherlands.
that.
Beautiful name, though.
No, Airbus is beautiful. We love them.
Yep. What is it? They designed it for the lowest common denominator, I think, something like that.
Yeah. And Boeings were designed for
Brilliant
pilots.
pilots.
Handsome. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Oh dear. I was going to say old personally, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, I'm not far behind you, man. All right. Let's see.
I have this conversation quite a lot with the Boeing guys on my company, and we all know deep down that we'll fly whatever we're told to fly, so long as we get paid enough.
Exactly.
Jennifer says, we've been making smart aleck comments with impunity.
Yes, you have.
Really?
But we have a record, and we're going to go back and make notes.
We'll ban you. We have the ability to ban you from our...
Yeah, but we actually like the audience. We don't know. I don't think we should have many people if we ban everyone that makes a smart aleck comment.
I agree with Michael. The A380 looks like a half melt suppository.
Yeah, I
That's an ugly
happen to
airplane.
agree. I actually think it really ought to be twice the length.
Yeah,
because it would look in proportion.
That's what she said.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it looks like a Boeing pilot's appendage. Short and fat. So it really ought to be longer, bigger volume. So
this is APG after hours.
And that would be a lot more pleasing, I'm sure.
Please enter your password to
Yeah,
verify
exactly
you're
right.
over 18.
But it's just the front end. Putting the flight deck where it is makes it look like a duck. Yeah.
That is why it looks bad, because they
Yeah.
put the flight deck so low. If they had stuck it up higher,
Yeah.
I think that it
Yeah.
would be a different looking airplane.
And if we all follow the same adage, I'm sure if it looks good, it flies well. So,
Yeah. Like proportion wise, it kind of looks like a 318,
yeah, it's too short.
Too short.
And as a consequence, it has this vast fin, which you look at it and you Good Lord.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like
You know,
that at 747 SP. Like you look at it and you go,
it's
that
actually
looks
the same.
like so out of proportion that
it looks like
a cartoon.
a balloon airplane, that someone's twisted out of balloons for the kids' party. The SP. So
Well, I don't know if the SB, I think it retained the same wing from the Dash 100, and then the same I guess number 1 and number 4 pylons were basically the same distance from center of gravity as the old 100 was.
They
but
just took a plug out.
They took a plug
Fore and
out,
aft
so
of the wing.
to make up for that, they actually had to lengthen the fin to be able to provide you that directional stability in case of a 1 or 4
you need an
engine
equivalent
failure.
moment arm.
Yep.
Because you shorten the fuselage. You're quite right. The same, and that's why I think the 380. I'm sure they built it in mind with. This will be the sort of 100 version. This will be the first version. The next one will be much bigger. We'll build a 700-seater, and that would have been a stretch body, and that would have looked much nicer, I think. But the same way, the 340-600, I think, looks a gorgeous airplane because it is so long.
But you know what? The A340, the 600, the A340 500, the 340s, all the A340s, all the 310, the 300, the A300, they all share the same vertical stabilizer. It's the same vertical stabilizer from the A300 all the way to 340, 600.
I never, because on the 600 we could do with a smaller one because there's such a long damn fuselage. But having said that,
but it's the same. It's the same stabilizer.
It doesn't need to be, but it could be a bit smaller.
Oh, look at Michael as a fan of Captain Nick. The 340-600 is my favorite Airbus.
Go for it. Go for it. We love it. I mean, it's a shame we're going to get rid of them before too long. And Acme Red. The word is, and it's not official. The word is the A350 is going to be our next VLA, very large aircraft. So it'll replace both the Boeings and the big Airbuses. I would love to. And apparently, in order to fly the A350, I need to do 2 days of ground school.
That's it?
That's it.
I would go for a week if I were you.
You reckon? I may not get paid for a week.
But trust me, you should probably do it. Joshua, I'm just kidding. He's probably an expert pilot. Joshua includes a picture here of the Super Guppy. I think that the Super Guppy actually looks better than the 380.
Well, yeah, I think you've got a point there. Is that the prop thing?
Yeah. It was like a C-97 or something.
How come it's a Super Guppy then? Shouldn't it be the standard Guppy?
Oh, they did have a regular Guppy, and then they did a Super Guppy. I forgot what the difference is, but anyway,
it's named after that ugly fish, isn't it?
Yeah. James, hey man, enjoyed lunch. Thanks for coming out.
A330.
The Super Guppy was based on the B-29.
Is the best aircraft ever. Well, Alex, yeah, it is. I don't find it the best airplane to fly, though. Perhaps because I've spent a lot more time flying the 340. But it's the devil of a job to keep control of your speed and not get too high and fast on the approach in the pattern. It really doesn't cope well with being held to a high airspeed on the arrival, on the approach, and then being asked to slow down quick to get back to VREF in order to hit your stabilized approach criteria. It takes an age to get the speed back. So it's very slick and it's very efficient, but it needs to be given a bit more space. Air traffickers haven't really caught on to that yet. And it's a bit tight inside, The 340-600 has got a bit more room around the cabin. And in order to get all those beautiful upper class seats in, it just gets a bit cramped in the aisles.
What about all the flight attendants that come up to the cockpit?
Well, they're always in there because there's no crew rest.
Oh.
So when the flight attendants want to take a break, and they're required now by law to have a 20-minute break every few hours, they don't have to have a long break a proper break on this flight, but there's nowhere in the aircraft for them to go hide, really.
Oh.
So they always come up the flight deck, which can be nice. It's really nice to see them up there, and we usually have a bit of a chat, and we get 3 or 4 of them up there at a go, and
Oh, Michael, you're a funny guy. Of course, the MD-88 was a great airplane when President Cleveland used it.
Oh, well, that was back in the 1920s, yeah?
Yeah. You know what? That's okay. It's just an airplane. I don't care.
Little known fact.
Well, it's classic, that's for sure.
You know, I'm not going to defend it because I really never intended to fly it. And
I just can't believe you can't do a CDA approach in it.
A what?
Constant descent angle approach. Well, you call it something wacky because
I can do a constant descent angle approach.
Well, you
just
can't
800 feet per minute. And
it
it
depressurizes on the way down, and you kill all the passengers. Apparently. Tell me it's not so.
It's not so.
God, then what happens to your packs then when you do one of these?
Oh, you mean like an idle descent?
Well, that's the idea. Yes, you do an idle descent.
The brain surgeons that come up with these ideas think that, that's a fuel efficient, approach or arrival, which is true, but the engines aren't producing enough air to keep the packs going to pressurize the airplane
on your antique machine.
Yeah, on my antique machine.
Yeah, okay. The rest of us don't have a problem. Fact,
well, you have other problems.
You shake a stick at.
You have other problems.
yeah, and one of which I'm being treated for, and I'm still taking the penicillin.
Yeah, trust me, he's not kidding. All right.
But it's not what you think.
If you were not pilots, what would you do? I don't know.
Comedians.
Comedians.
Yeah.
Sanitation.
I think I'd probably be an air traffic controller because if I can't be a pilot, I'll just tell them
where
to
go. Oh, man. Yeah, it's getting late. I think it's time for us to shut down.
Jeff needs to go to bed. He's got a busy day tomorrow. I can lie in.
Yeah, I am.
That's okay, Asa. I know that they love me. They're piling on.
Of course we do. Of course we do.
It's all out of love.
Absolutely.
I don't take offense, really.
Yeah. I need to go to work. Well, you're not the only one, Masha.
What time is it? It's like, like 5 o'clock in the morning there, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
Wow.
I was never into, Vega Tech? Vega? That German Vega? Vega Tech?
Never into aviation before I found the show last year. Thanks for ruining it for me.
Oh, nice one. Excellent. I love it.
I'm sure all the ATC guys want to tell old curmudgeon where to go.
Yeah, they can try. They don't get much success though. I've got quite a little group of air traffic controllers I chat to on Twitter, and I tell you, the banter that passes between us has to be seen to be believed. They call the Heathrow Tower, I don't know if you've seen it, it looks like a big pepper pot and a pole. They call it the Tower of Power.
The Tower of Power.
The Tower of Power.
Yeah,
Yeah,
nice,
exactly.
I like that.
Bye, Masha. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Bye,
everybody.
Masha.
And who's driving back to Miami? These two guys.
Yeah, well, I'm
You ain't staying
sleeping.
here.
I'm sleeping. Rick, the brave chap. Who,
I'll do the driving.
Yeah, he is
It's
the
gonna
man.
be it's gonna be an interesting drive. Nah, it's about hopefully an hour and a half down to Nick's and then another half hour down to my place. So I've got about 2 hour drive to look forward to. So it's not gonna be bad.
Sleep all day tomorrow.
Oh yeah, my next flight's next Wednesday. So I've got a while to go.
And anyone who's interested, I don't suppose any of you are, VS6 tomorrow, having come out on the VS117, I'm being a cruise pilot on the VS6 tomorrow evening, which I suspect will also be late. Every time I say this, I'm 2 hours late. Not good.
All right. Well, we're gonna say good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
for joining us.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye now.